Good evening, Littleton. Welcome to the November 18th Select Board meeting. We'll start with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have the organization, reading the mail, department updates, a recognition of LELWD employees, talk about the Charter Commission process. We're going to have an info session about paint stewardship bills. 7:45, we'll have public input. Then we'll do a select board discussion, May 6th, 2025 town meeting schedule, select board meeting schedule, update on the orchard, a request to use the Littleton Town Common, Taylor Street exclusion, that's an easy thing to say, Northern Tier Rail Project, support, and minutes. So we'll start with the mail.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a number of vacancies on some town boards, and please, anybody, please get involved. We've got opportunities on the Agricultural Commission, Conservation, Cultural, Economic Development, Historical, Master Plan, Permanent Municipal Building Committee, Transportation Advisory Council, Zoning Board of Appeals, and appointed by the school committee. They need one member for the Finance Committee. Sign up to receive public notifications for the town of Littleton. We can do that by registering at www.littletonma.org/subscribe. Community impacts, public safety activity, transportation issues, town meeting changes, town events, public health concerns. Stay informed. We have one gift acceptance from Sam Alvarez over at the library, and the name of the party offering the gift is the Eva Applebaum Investment Trust in the amount of $6,640.72. There's nothing specific for the purpose of why the gift has been offered, but they would like to see it spent in programming with that. There is a notice of public hearing by National Grid for the approval of the utilities of the National Grids, and they're doing and that's the approval by the Department of Public Utilities of its 3-year energy efficiency plan for 2025 through 2027, and that is something that they are required to notice and make a filing of all of public hearings. And there could be in-person hearing on December 3rd, 2024, beginning at 7 p.m. in Worcester at the Hogan Campus Center of the College of Holy Cross, 1 College Street in Worcester. December 4th, beginning at 7 p.m. in New Bedford at the Keith Middle School, Hathaway Boulevard, New Bedford. Virtual public hearing on December 5th, beginning at 2, via Zoom conference using a link. Interpretation services, Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, Mandarin, and Cantonese, Haitian, Creole, and Vietnamese will be available. And also an in-person on December 5th in Boston at the Department of Public Utilities, 1 South Station, Boston, Massachusetts. Also, interpretation services will be available. Let me see. Notification, Zoning Board of Appeals, notification to abutters. The AIR ZBA will be conducting a hybrid public hearing at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, November 20th at AIR Town Hall, 1 Main Street, regarding the application submitted by Swati Bindu Panda for the property located at 48 Apple Blossom Drive, AIR, Mass, seeking a special permit for the AIR zoning bylaw section to allow for a family daycare home. And that is 6 o'clock at AIR Town Hall. And Mass Department of Transportation Public Information Meeting I-495 Route 111 bridge replacement in Boxborough. And that is going to be Tuesday, November 26th, 2024, from 6:30 to 8:30 at Boxborough Town Hall in the Grange Room. And just want to make everyone available to that because there may be some impact that it may have on Littleton residents' commutes. And join us for the Turkey Bingo, door prizes, raffle 50/50. Get ready for an evening of fun, excitement, and community as we raise money for the new senior center. You'll have a chance to win turkeys, desserts, veggies, baskets, and more. Tuesday, November 21st, 6 to 8 p.m. in the Town Hall Multipurpose Room. And that is hosted by the Friends of the Littleton Council on Aging. And that's it.
So there was one other piece of mail that I don't know if you got, the police department got, that MassDOT is going to be doing surveys of the bridge over 119 at Beaverbrook for preparation of replacement of that bridge. I think the replacement's scheduled for 26 or 27, but they're out doing the environmental study of it now.
I think we got $13 million grant for that, correct?
There was,
With,
it's a state project, not a
yeah, I think it was
town
before you
project.
came on.
It was.
Yeah, right down by the,
Yeah.
Okay.
over the swamp.
Super. Thank you.
Okay, recognition of Light and Water.
Great.
Do you want to?
If I can, let me just start, if I can. Mr. Sanders had made efforts and to really request the Select Board and the administration to recognize the efforts from the staff from the General Manager of Nick Lawler and staff members that took time away from their families and traveled all the way down to one point in Mississippi and another location in Florida for disaster relief. And they took time away from, as I said, took time away from their families, went down there, and as Nick's most recent return trip for something in, I believe, was it South Carolina? North Carolina? Georgia, okay. It's no picnic, so it's not like, it's a lot of fun. So there's a lot of sacrifice that's done, and so, and the Select Board is recognizing the importance and the appreciation of that. They would like to recognize all of you this evening. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to say a few things. Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks. George Sanders also wrote to the President of the United States in recognition. We're still waiting for that one, right? Just to not confuse the public with this is for efforts in 2022 for Hurricane Ian. We had 8 employees between that event and Jackson, Mississippi was a flooding event at a treatment plant that these employees dedicated themselves to. Mutual Aid New England is incredible at mutual aid, and they really are, and the heart of that program runs through Littleton. And that was well before I got here. That goes back generations. So really fortunate to work in Littleton. These individuals will get recognized tonight, but there's 40 other individuals back at our light plant and water department that would do the same thing. So we've had 9 events since 2022. So it's a little strange being recognized for the 22 event today. But we have employees that are truly dedicated to the cause. We've been in Navajo Nation, bringing power to people who never had it. Real fortunate to work here. I don't know if you want me to call the names out, but we got Paul Denaro went to Jackson, Mississippi, along with Alex Luther and Alan Wardowitz. And Trevor Snyder was in Bartow, Florida during Hurricane Ian. We've had 2 retirements and an employee leave us also along the way that aren't here as well. So part of that effort.
Okay, thank you.
Can they stand up just to be recognized? Just so, that's,
Yeah, absolutely.
you guys are all bashful.
And we got the chairman of our board here to support us as well.
There's Mr. Taylor.
We do receive positive comments from the community often with these events. I think George is the first one to call after every national event, and it's really an incredible thing to be part of. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
culture you've created.
Did you, want your picture?
Yeah.
We're sorry it took so long. I don't know why it took so long.
Yeah, I think you do a recognition. I know the department does recognition as well, so I think we got to get better at kind of either jumping on board with yours, bringing it in together where we all can recognize, or definitely be more timely
Commissioners
because
do something, right?
You guys mind if we get a picture? Okay, thanks, everyone.
Never again.
Charter Committee process update?
Mr. Chairman and members of the Select Board, this is our ongoing project that the Select Board has been in support of. And in Ryan and I, as we have taken the steps to reach out to existing current town managers that have been part of the process, that were town manager, former government that transitioned into town manager. But an individual that I think from a different perspective, who was during his career of close to 40 years, was a town manager in a couple different locations in the Merrimack Valley. He resides in Tingsboro, which was which did the transition, and he was on the board. So Bob Mercier, and having been a town manager and been part of the process in Tingsboro, we thought it'd be a great opportunity to come and share his perspective of the process, and gives an opportunity for the Select Board to ask any questions and any opinions or anything like that. So if I can ask Mr. Mercier to come up to the podium, please.
Podium. By the way, that's what local government's about. Makes it all worthwhile.
Yep.
For people like you folks and Jim and Ryan. Unsung heroes. But anyway, Jim, Ryan, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll just be brief because I know you're just beginning your process. And it is a process, I'll tell you that. My history, Jim touched upon it. Thanks for the 40 years, Jim. But,
Started in high school.
So my history is I spent the majority of my time as both a town manager and a town administrator. Different formats of government, as you will find out, and you probably know a lot about now. I live in Tingsboro. Most of my career has been in the Merrimack Valley. I was a town manager in Billerica, and I was a town administrator twice in Burlington. So I was there for the first time. They changed their government, and then they invited me back, believe it or not, after I had left for a period of time. I've been an elected selectman in Tingsboro, and Jim's correct. When I got on the board, I started to think about how we can change the way we do business in Tingsboro. Tingsboro is pretty similar. You know Tingsboro, about 12,000 people, plus or minus, are right on the line with New Hampshire, so there are those conflicts for people. But we needed a change. I thought we needed a change. And we had, at the time, when I first got elected to the board, an executive secretary. And we transitioned that into a town administrator, which was a relatively weak position because we didn't go through a charter, we didn't go through a special act, we didn't do any of that. We just created the position and put some responsibilities under that position and incorporated that into our bylaws, our overall bylaws. As time evolved, and you're seeing it, as things get more and more complex, I thought, and I was off the board, I was back working for a living, I just thought that I, not alone, with people in town, thought that we needed to think about moving to a town manager form of government, because we were very decentralized, as a lot of towns are. And most people, most reasonable people felt, let's at least take a look at that. We may be able to gain some benefits in efficiencies and responsibilities and accountability, all of that stuff. And we started to look at it. And I was appointed by the board to serve on a committee. I was not the chair, but they created a committee to look at creating a charter. We failed the first time around because we didn't do enough homework. And that's going to be critical for you folks moving forward. Make sure you do your outreach. Make sure you involve the community, because especially with a charter, if you go that route, charter's going to require a vote at the ballot, a town-wide vote. So unless you do your homework, people could be skeptical about what your intents are going forward. So you need to really do some education, and that's all part of the process. I know you've got a committee. I saw their charge. Jim and Ryan sent me their charge, which is a very good charge. It's a very good starting point for you folks. Now the work's going to begin. So let me give you a little experience with us. With Tingsboro, I was also in Boxborough, by the way, as a temporary. I was in Wayland, so I know similar-sized communities. In Boxborough, I helped them write their Town Administrator Act, because they had nothing. But more and more towns, not everyone, but more and more towns are looking to the manager form of government. Well, take a look around you. Most of the communities have town managers and have charters. We just finished last year the Westford Town Manager Search. I'm also doing recruiting for town managers, but we did that search. We've done Bedford, 13,000 plus or minus people, but they've had a charter for almost 40 years, a professional manager there. Clearly, Billerica's a town manager, Chelmsford's a town manager, Acton's a town manager. So anyway, the point is more and more communities are moving in that direction. Now I'll give you the other side of the coin. Some communities don't want to take that full bite in creating a charter. A charter is a full review of your governance and your governance structure. And there are different caveats to how communities want to govern themselves. One of the primary ones is how many people do we want to keep elected as opposed to appointed? It's one of the issues you're going to face. We faced it in Tingsboro. We didn't do enough homework on that, and we got beaten up a little bit at town meeting on our first go-around. You know, we were trying to do too much at one time. We wanted to create the charter with a strong town manager, create a full Department of Public Works department in the same argument, and people just said it's too much. It's too much. Go back, give us a revision, and we did. We did. The other part that's going to be important for you or for any community, Jim and Ryan also sent me your elected positions in town. You have a lot. Some towns shy away from doing that when they move into a charter. Obviously, you keep the library trustees are always elected. School committees are always elected. The ones that people have some debate on is your Board of Health elected? Is your Planning Board elected? Is your Concon elected? Is your Recreation Commission elected? And I know, I've got the list, so I know what you guys are going to be dealing with. But that's an issue you have to talk through with your community as to what you want to do. I've seen it both ways. I've seen, Billerica was a very, very strong charter. It's one of the strongest in Massachusetts. It copied the Andover Lexington models. We just finished Lexington, by the way. They just replaced their new town manager. So a very strong charter in Lexington. And they've had it for a long time. So has Concord. So those are communities that are experienced with this. But one of the things that Burlington, my town where I spent the most of my time in my professional career, passed a special act of the legislature in 1979, 1980 period. I was the first one they hired to be the new town administrator. They had an executive secretary at the time, and they knew they needed some changes, but they didn't want to do a town charter. They weren't quite ready for that. So what they did is they created an act of the legislature to create a town administrator, and it's a pretty strong town administrator, but it did not eliminate a lot of the elected positions. A lot of them stayed in place, which is something, as I mentioned, you're going to have to deal with. It doesn't mean it makes governing more difficult. But what it does is if you create a town administrator, a strong town administrator, one of the things you need to pay attention to is the appointing authority of the town administrator. For instance, I don't know if you're dealing with this, we were dealing with it in Tingsboro. We had elected boards of health, we had an elected planning board, we had an elected Concon, we had elected cemetery commissioners, of which we can never find anybody to run. So we cleaned up some of that. But one of the things that we face in creating the town administrative position is who's the appointing authority? Because I think you have a pretty concise set of personnel bylaws. Your town administrator currently is your personnel administrator, I believe. So it's difficult if an elected board doesn't have that kind of knowledge when they're looking to hire somebody. I can remember discussions I had in Burlington when I first got in there, because it was brand new to everybody, and the Board of Health would come in and say, look, we're going to hire this guy. I said, that's not your responsibility anymore. It's the town administrator's responsibility. Well, we're elected. I said, I know that, but your employee answers to the greater good, right? To the town, to the organization, the town itself. And the difficulty we had is we said, look, if you hire somebody, first of all, the town administrator is the appointing authority. Forgive that for a minute. If you hire somebody and you negotiate a contract with that individual, and the town administrator is not aware of it, and he or she has other people in the contracts, and they're all saying, how come that person got this and this person got this? And it just creates a lot of unrest. There's a solution to that. If you go the route of a special legislation, some of the language you can look at, and again, I'm probably preaching too much here, some of the language you could look at is town administrator is the appointing authority. In the case of an employee under the direction of the planning board, Board of Health, whatever group it is, the town administrator is the appointing authority, but will consult with the board on the direction of the next employee. Meaning, and I went through it a lot, and it's pretty easy. The Board of Health needed a new public health director. I do the recruitment. This is Burlington I'm talking about. I do the recruitment with our HR department. And when the interviews came, I'd invite a Board of Health member in. Easy. Then the Board of Health member buys in, goes to his board and says, this is who, in this case Bob, is appointing. I'm all in favor. So there's ways to get around that. You'll go through it as you have your committee established, but it's a lot of work. The other thing we did in Burlington with the special act, we also at the same time created another special act to change the way we govern ourselves with town meeting. We went from an open town meeting to a representative town meeting. That's a discussion you can have. It could be in a charter. In our case, we did it differently. We created the town administrator statute, and then we created the town meeting. 686, if I remember, of the acts of 1978. They created a representative town meeting in town because at the time, they felt, I'm not sure what you guys are dealing with, but Tingsboro still has an open town meeting. You know what happens with open town meeting. Purest form of government, we all agree to that, but it caters to certain constituencies in the community. Typically, I'm not saying anything out of school here, speaking of schools, if you have a major school issue, you're going to get a lot of people at town meeting. If you don't, you probably won't. And the other thing that I think what happened in Burlington is they saw it and said, why don't we just create a representative town meeting? They're all elected. Nobody appoints them. They're all elected. And they come from precincts in the town. And they don't leave after one vote. They're elected. They stay there the whole time. And they have an obligation to show up because they're elected representatives. That's just a discussion you could have as you look at this whole charter issue. But it's an interesting one. And a lot of people are reluctant to look at that. I've worked, well, I live in Tingsboro, so I know the open meeting concept. Both Burlington and Berica had representative town meetings. Boxborough had an open, Wayland had an open town meeting, and I've worked in both those communities. So it's a daunting task in a lot of respects, because of the educational component. Most people, and I'm not saying this to be derogatory, but most people who live in your town are happy to get their trash picked up, their kids go to school, the police and fire are there, Public Works plows their roads. They don't really understand the full operation of a town like you guys do, because you're responsible. They probably don't know the total budget you're dealing with. But, you know, that becomes crystallized as you go out and make the pitch to the folks in town. So I'll kind of leave it at that, Jim, and let you guys ask me questions. I will say this, Jim and I and Ryan, we've known each other for years. I'm sort of a municipal geek, and I know you guys have hired the Collins Center. Good group to do this. They know how to do it. But I told Jim and I told Ryan, you got questions, the board has questions, they want to talk to me about it. I'm at your, well, you know, I'm like I said, I'm a municipal geek. I want to see government continue to progress. And I think what you're doing is a very good sign.
Thank you. You want to start?
I'm still noodling.
I had a couple questions right off the bat. You said it took you 2 attempts to do the charter, get it approved. What was the time between those two?
Couple of years. When we came back the second time with our revisions, which kept in some of the elected folks because we got so much pushback, and they've been cleaning it up, by the way, since then. And you know, as our town clerk retired, we replaced it with an appointment, blah blah. So anyway, it's a work in progress, I guess. But the reason we didn't move forward, and it was 2019, is pretty much the advent of COVID, and we just didn't feel, because of the restrictions, and we had our town meetings outside, and everybody was afraid to come out and all that. So it just wasn't fair to do something that major without people having an opportunity to speak. So we delayed it, and we ultimately passed it. And ultimately in 2022, we actually got it passed through the legislature as a charter.
And you said you're continuing to, you're not doing like a normal 10-year review cycle, you're doing like annual tweaks or
Well,
regular
we
tweaks?
built in a 5-year review, and a lot of towns build that in to make it stay in focus. Some towns do 10 years. I think the rapidity of changes in government, I think it should be minimum 5 years, because things change so quick. You know, you're sitting there, you know how quickly things change. So I don't know what's going to happen, what the landscape's going to look like in 4 or 5 years, but I can tell you it's going to be different. So you need, as a community, you need to be able to react to that and either give your town manager, your town administrator, whatever you choose, either more authority, less, whatever, but it should be looked at.
And how large was your committee? And
We had 7 people. We did not have any employees. We had myself, who was a former selectman at the time. We had another former selectman at the time. And we had interested residents, very interested residents, who, I want to say for the most part, we didn't really know them. They just wanted to give their time. Here's what one person told me. You know, I want to serve on the charter commission here for town because I want to see better government. I don't want to be involved in anything else. So don't keep me on a cheat list for, oh, that guy or gal was on the charter. Let's put him on the concept. I just want to give back to my community. And he was an HR specialist. So we valued what he brought to the table. And you get people like that. You'll be surprised. There will be people who want to be interested in this.
And about how long did the process take for the first go-round, and how many meetings did you have? And
I want to say upwards of 30 meetings. Because we tried to interview all department heads, we tried to interview elected officials, and it just, you know, when you have a committee, you know this. This was 7 people. Sometimes you can't get a quorum, you got to cancel the meeting, come back, you know, that type of stuff. So, yeah, it took a while. Second time was a little quicker because people, by the way, I was going to give you a link here. Fall Town Meeting in Tingsboro 2021, Article 6, an act to establish the position of town manager. It's on video. You can watch it. It's the board, the selectmen, explaining point by point what was in the town charter. So it's a good video for you. It's an educational piece. You might want to just let your charter committee know about that. So it's a good document for you to look at.
Okay.
Those fall town meeting 22?
21,
2022, yep.
22.
It's the town meeting of 2021, Article 6, and it says, "An act establishing the town meeting position." Just look it up. It's on YouTube, I think. So they video everything in Tingsboro.
How did you recruit your, the folks that you
It was appointed
appointed?
by the selectmen. And the
But
selectmen,
how did you get the word out that this was happening and that folks should apply?
lots of public meetings. Oh, you mean the committee itself? Selectmen announced it, 4 consecutive meetings, gave a deadline, because obviously if you just let it, and people did respond. And, they had a tough position. It was not an easy decision, because some of those folks, nobody knew. I mean, you have a standard form, I'm not sure your form, but you get some identification of who they are and what they do professionally and all that kind of stuff. But some of the board members didn't know who they were, and frankly appreciated that. So,
That's good. Just to kind of follow up on one of Mark's questions, what was the frequency? You said 30 meetings. What was the frequency? Meeting twice a month, like every other Wednesday, or is it something like that kind of cadence?
usually twice a month, a little more in the winter, because, a summer schedule is not good for anybody.
Yeah.
So a little more in the winter. But keep in mind, this, people have other obligations.
Sure.
It's your budget, it's finance committee meeting, all that, your meetings, so you got to be careful on that. But it's, when we really started, we started slow. But then as we got into the outreach, we had a couple of meetings in public sessions at a library, for instance, come and hear what we're talking about and give us input and all that kind of stuff. It starts to get a little busier as you're getting closer to creating the document. And by the way, you don't have to recreate the wheel here. There are so many examples of town manager charters, town administrator special acts. They're all over the place. UMass would have a great database for you to kind of look at, and you can tweak it. That's what this is all about. This is not my charter. It's not Tingsboro's charter. It's your charter. So you guys got to figure out what you think is going to make sense for this town.
Can you talk about what the time commitment is for the people on the committee outside of the meetings?
Not too bad, because we had, I mentioned, we had a couple of former selectmen, so we kind of knew the ropes. We worked a lot with the administration for creating documents and those type of things. We created a lot of our own, but we had them look at it, obviously, to make sure that we're not going afoul. But it's not a real big commitment outside of the meetings.
Bringing up the town manager versus town administrator special act.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest education piece outside of just what we know as a town administrator to be, and then the special act, which gives obviously more authority, appointing, and all the other authorities that come with that. What in your mind, what's the greatest difference between a town administrator that's appointed by special act versus a town manager? Or is it just? I hate to just use the word, because it seems like it's more about the authority that the charter is giving, or the act is giving, than the position.
Here's one thing, Gary. Here's one thing I heard during our discussions. Well, we know what a manager is, and we know what an administrator is. We prefer the term administrator because a manager sounds like it's a dictator. Somebody's out there in charge of everything. The selectmen are cut out of it. No, they're not. But that's one of those things. So it became almost semantics in terms of the discussion, because we got the question, Gary. We had a town administrator. So people are saying, why are we moving to a town manager? What's wrong with the town? And everybody liked the administrator at the time. And we said, it's not about that. So to your point, some of the questions. Most charters will kind of eliminate some of the redundancies in government. And it's very articulate and spelled out as to what the specific responsibilities. Yours is a little generic. I've seen it. They gave it to me. But a charter will specifically identify what the responsibilities of the manager is, as well as what the responsibilities of the select board is. Because that's always a discussion. You know, what lane does the elected board take and what lane does the chief administrative officer take? And sometimes that gets blurry and sometimes causes problems internally in a community. So that's clarified in the charter. For instance, one thing that in Barica I told you is a strong charter. One thing they had in there as a preamble, the intent of this charter is to keep the elected officials out of day-to-day operations of the community. And, you know, some people didn't like that and said, but they're elected. They're supposed to be. No, I always thought that towns are operating, it's different, I get it, but like a company. You've got a board of directors, you've got a CEO. I don't think the board of directors get involved in too much on a day-to-day basis of running a company. I don't know what your budget is, but this is a pretty big organization to run. And, you know, it gets a little dicey sometimes when those definitions aren't clarified as to who's responsible for what. So that's the primary difference in a charter versus a town administrator. Now, my Town Administrator Act, and it's online, you can look at it, was a fairly strong town administrator. The weakness is they didn't eliminate a lot of elected people. I had an elected Recreation Commission, elected Board of Health, elected Planning Board, elected assessors, and it made it clumsy at times. It wasn't unmanageable, but it made it a little clumsy. The town charter in Barica had a planning board, school committee, library trustees. That's it, elected. So it depends on how you want to tweak it and what makes sense for you guys. And one of the overriding issues we heard, it's tough to get people involved. You know, we had elected positions in Tingsboro, nobody ran. No, it's just tough to get people involved. So let the professionals run the organization, you know, and there's oversight. You're the chief executive body in town. There's always going to be oversight to either your manager or your town administrator, whatever decision you guys make going forward. There's always going to be oversight. You don't get rid of a finance committee. You don't get rid of town. You might change the way town meeting is, but you're not looking to create a town council like some towns are moving to. Eliminates town meeting. That would never happen in my town. Never happen in Burlington. Never happen in Barica. But some towns have moved to that.
Any other questions or?
What's that?
No, it's been helpful, thank you.
Yeah, thank you
If I
very
may
much.
just, Paul,
We need your speed dial.
what's that?
Put them on speed dial.
Oh, that's there, trust me. Were there any elected boards or commissions that were transitioned into appointed positions that you had experience with?
Town clerk, we did that. Assessors, we did it. And by the way, that's a good one. Assessors is not an easy job. I just talked to a friend of mine in Burlington. They're going through their tax setting tonight, right? Good luck with that. But that's not an easy job. Neither is the Board of Health. But let me tell you what happened in Barica as we transitioned from a elected Board of Health to an appointed Board of Health. I had on that board, because I was the appointing authority, I had a doctor, I had a nurse practitioner, and I had somebody from the pharmacy industry. It was a 3-member board. And these people only wanted to they were appointed, and I remember the doctor told me, I want to come on because I've got some issues with diseases and all that. I think the Board of Health can be more aggressive in and all that. But he said, I'm not here for life. I'll give you 3 years. I may consider another 3. But after that, I'm going. I just want to give back a little bit to the town. And it's hard to get people like that because you know the argument. If you run for election, you're likely running for election again, unless you just get burnt out real quick. And this guy didn't want to do that. He said, look, I'll give you my time. I'll give you my expertise. I want to give that time back to the town. But then I'm out. So it allows you to pick and choose some folks who have real expertise. You know, anyway, so
So are you finding it easier to fill positions once they're appointed versus elected?
I'll say probably 60-40. It gives you a better breadth of candidates. Now, sometimes you have to ring the bell a little bit and kind of recruit directly, people you may know, you've ran across, people sitting on the library trustees who know people who, I know this gal, a guy who really wants to serve on a board, doesn't want to run for office, but would like to be on the Board of Health.
Right.
So you reach out that way.
I'll open it up if anyone in the audience has any questions they want to ask.
Am I in the way?
Hang on 1 second, yeah.
George Sanders, 682 Great Road. I'd just like to understand the difference with the open town meeting and the representative that you spoke about. How does that work?
Okay. Do you mind if I address them directly? I don't want you to look at my back. So an open town meeting, you'll hear this, is the purest form of government. Every resident in town could go to the open town meeting and vote yea or nay on the public works budget, the school budget, the police budget, whatever. The problem is that in today's society, we're losing interest from people. They're either too busy, well, this is the claim. I'm too busy to get involved, blah, 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 blah. So we've seen diminishing numbers show up at open town meeting. In a lot of towns, not just my town, Tingsboro, a lot of towns you're seeing that. So people started to think, how can we get people who are really committed to the town to come to town meeting, stay for the town's budget and the school budget? Well, sometimes you see the school budget voted, you got a mass migration out, because that part of their business is done. That's not what we wanted. We wanted to make sure that people who were there, and this is the representative now, George, were elected. And they're elected by precinct, and you got to go through you got to talk to your town clerk about how to set that up and all that. But those areas of town are represented by elected people. And the attendance is greater than, always over 80%, because they're elected people. And you said a number, whatever that number, in Burlington we had 126, in Baraga we had 240. Bigger town, but we had 126 in Burlington. And we routinely had 105, 110 every town meeting. So, and people who are committed. There's 126 of them in Burlington, so we used to send them the warrant 3 weeks ahead. Questions, call me, call whoever. So when you come to town meeting, you're prepared, you know what's on the agenda for the warrant, and you're ready to vote. Doesn't mean we don't have a discussion. We have a good discussion, healthy discussion. Sometimes not the way I wanted it to go. That's how things work. Open town meeting, as I said, I'm not down on it. I just see the changes coming that it's so hard to get people to commit to go to those and commit their time to go to those town meetings, unless it's a specific item, like a school budget. And I don't want to pick on schools. It could be a police station building. Those people who are interested can come, vote for that, and say, I got kids at home, I gotta go. So that's the basic difference.
What's the time element usually with that? In open, depends on what's there. The debate can go on, but with the representative, is that shorter? Or?
No. The key to that, I hope you guys have it, is your moderator. If you have a good, strong moderator, the moderator can move this stuff along. And I was fortunate in both Burlington and Baraga, we had a good moderator. And that person would, I can remember, he got some people upset because he said, when somebody got up and asked a question, he said, we just heard that question. Now, we'll move on. So you don't get, how can I say this politely? Some people like to talk, whether it's an open town meeting or a representative town meeting. And they feel like they have to speak on every article. The moderator controls that.
Thank you.
Real quick, is Kingsborough an open town meeting?
Yes. Yep.
So you have not moved to representative town?
We have not. We have not.
Have you tried?
We did not yet, because we had the struggle of getting the town manager through.
Understood.
but people are talking to us about maybe we gotta look at that. I am not sure. It may be a similar demographic. I am not sure Kingsborough will go to representative. Yeah.
I was just curious.
Name and address.
Oh, Rob Houston, 55 Jennifer Street. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
We good?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, again, Ryan knows where I am, Jim knows where I am. You got any questions, they'll give you my contacts, and like I said, I'm a geek. I love municipal government, I love people thinking about moving forward with their structure, and anything I can do to help.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks. We're talking.
So you want to talk about the document you wrote?
Yeah, so just moving on, this is really a first look draft. The one I sent out later kind of got rid of some language that, the document that was created in 2017, a final report of the town government study that was done for Littleton in 2007, didn't actually create a charter of any kind, it was just a report. So I removed all language that was referencing a charter because we don't have one of any kind. So, but other than that, I think this was kind of a first swag at this. I did research about 12 other communities that went through the charter process. Got a lot of good ideas from them. Put a lot of stuff in that we had talked about, but I know I didn't encapsulate everything, and I think there's maybe some things in here that we maybe were not interested in. I was trying to remember some of the discussions that we had on where we wanted to go, and that's why I had put in the town administrator, town manager, form of leadership, town meeting open representative, and then everything kind of we just talked about. But there's other things in there as well that I think if there's something missing, I think we should add it. If it's something you think we really don't need, I think we should take it away. The budgeting and finance part, we're pretty locked with we do pretty well with our financial policies, but I put it in there because that's such a major part of our yearly and how we do things. But I think I covered a lot of the things that Bob even discussed, but I want to make sure that there's not other stuff we want in there.
If I may, I do think it's important to have the budget and finance in there because then it's codified. It needs to be included in the charter just so that, it may be the exact same way we do it now.
Yeah.
But it needs to be stated in the charter, I think. Not necessarily just things that are changing, just this is our MO, this is our SOPs, or however you want to,
Yeah.
word it.
And trying to be forward thinking a little bit, I did acknowledge, sustainability and housing and climate change, but incorporating that into the charter would be very difficult at this time. But I wanted to make sure that it needs to be a flexible document. That's why I like the idea of every 5 years at least reviewing it, because things change so fast. That we want to keep this, streamlined to how it directly is going to affect the structure of our town government. And I think if we get too far out there and we start talking about housing and all the other things, we kind of lose that piece of it, which are all very important to the town, but I don't know if they're as important to the structure of our town government and what we're trying to accomplish. So that's kind of why I put it in here, but I didn't put it as one of the things that really need to be heavily discussed.
It's a non-goal.
Right, as a non-goal.
Oh, yeah.
Things I'd left open, I did put in yellow, how we're going to, how we want this to look. Are we going to do all at large, 7 to 9, large, whatever we get, we all review, and we pick through, who knows how many candidates we're going to get for this, but I think if we just did a simple scale, 1 to 5, and each one of us grades a person from 1 to 5, we could do it that way, and then we add up the scores, and these are the 7, these are the 9 people that we take. Or do we get more aggressive when we appoint? I mean, we can discuss.
Would you just want resumes submitted as points of interest, or do you want me to see whether the Collins Center actually has a template for
I think so.
an application? Anything like that? Which would you prefer?
I think once we get this, solid, how we all want it, that goes out, that maybe gets posted through the Collins Center or how we want to do it, and then everyone can apply, looking at this, if it's something they'd even be interested in getting involved in. And then from there, yeah, I think we have to have some type of a template
Okay.
where, as it relates to this, so that people can speak to a little bit of this, because if we
Right.
don't have, maybe someone just hits on, they're very strong in budgeting and finance, maybe they're very strong in certain, maybe they're strong municipal background. I mean, we just spoke, listening to Bob, he had a few different, prior select board members that probably brought a lot of knowledge to the table in something
So
like
I
that.
think the rephrasing the question is, do we want to use our standard application process for boards, or do we want to reach out to see if there's something more specific? I'm fine with our standard one, I think.
As long as this goes with, so they understand.
Right, so I think this is basically the post of the board that we're creating, right? In your application, you respond to this,
Yeah.
kind of. Yeah, this is basically the charter of the charter.
Yeah, it is, and it's speaking to the commitment, the timing issues. I wanted to make sure I put in there, which I obviously have X'd out because I don't know. I mean, I was trying to be realistic with this, and I was looking at getting this to a town meeting in 2026, May 2026. This would be that I think is a reasonable, a year to 15 months before it goes in front of town meeting. But that, like I said, that's something that can change. So we want to have timing on there so that the board knows, or the committee knows how many times they need to meet and what our expectation is as a select board. So really, our discussions outside of what you guys want to add or take away is the membership piece. If that's an open, I think we want to use our open application process. Using this is what the committee looks like, this is the responsibility, this is the time commitment. I think that's a start, would probably work. I haven't seen what the Collins Center uses, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know if they use anything,
Right,
so.
but I think if people
Okay.
can write their resume or application to this document, and we can get a good idea, I think, a feel for what they're.
So I personally, I think our standard application is probably good enough. And we can use this as something for them to go questions from. It will be faster, right, because we can basically agree on, more or less on the form of this
Yeah.
tonight
Yeah.
and post it. I think your timing is off slightly, and I think, the committee really starts in January 25, right?
Yeah, that's why it's all.
So I would say,
December and work starts
like our
in
December
January.
16th meeting, we appoint the committee. I think it's December 16th, we'd have a meeting, right?
Okay.
And we'd appoint the committee, and then they can start in January. We do need to add more like what the time commitments are to this, like we're expecting, twice monthly meetings for 18 months or whatever it is. right?
Yeah.
Just so people
Okay.
know what they're in for when they apply.
So under the timing issues, is the expectation that you.
Expectations, yeah.
And I like the, and that's the committee would actually have to discuss. It makes sense more over the seasonal. You do lose a lot of people over the summer. There's no doubt about that.
The only thing I'm going to counter, I guess, is that he made the point that in order to get the word out there, and Karen, you asked the question, in order to get it out there, just kept getting it out there over the course of 4 meetings.
Yeah, we've been talking about it for a while.
We have,
haven't
but
been
just having
formalizing it.
something that we can specifically talk about, because we've kind of been,
Yeah.
Well, even, and that's just this meeting, we're going to get 120 views of this probably, right? So it's more, if you know people that would be interested or you think would be a value added to these, reach out to them and get them to apply. Let us all know who.
We can put a
I
snippet.
don't disagree with that, but his point was there were a couple people that applied that
Yeah. But how do you reach them?
weren't in any of our circles, say, so, and those are, having that perspective, people that aren't tied to any of us,
Right.
I'll say, just put that out there, but,
Yeah.
I think is valuable. I mean, depending upon what their resumes, I mean, they don't want to just have somebody that is an outsider, if you will, for the sake of having somebody that's not connected to anyone, but.
Yeah.
So I think when this is settled, we put a little blurb in the newsletter as its own item.
Absolutely.
And maybe we do a reverse, we do the text that this thing is being formed, and I mean, I
alert.
get it. I get a text every day that, there's a fire ban again today, so
Yeah.
we can put this out and say, through that same mechanism. All right?
Yeah.
Sir.
The makeup of the board is kind of discussed. It's a typical board. You have a chair, clerk, vice chair. I didn't put the clerk's responsibilities in here because I think we had discussed a lot of the work, the minutes being done by
Tax work off.
a tax workout program or something. So it takes some of that burden off because you want everyone to be focusing on the work at hand, not getting bogged down in what the minutes were on every. But that was the governance.
If I could, I wanted to just maybe discuss the what this isn't section a little more. or
Sure.
what this is for. I understand the intent. I worry that by saying it's not this, and not this, we leave it open to, well, what about that and that? And I wonder if maybe we can word this more in terms of this is a structural review and not an aspirational document for, town goals and versus, which I think is what you were getting at.
Yeah, it was hard to word.
Yeah.
I really was trying to, I'm not going to say steal, borrow language from other towns that had it, but a lot of them didn't encapsulate what you're trying to say. Maybe you can help with that, kind of putting in, what it actually is and what it isn't. And maybe expound on what you're trying to say there a little bit. It does speak to, seeks to recommend changes to ensure Littleton's government meets the current and anticipated needs of our residents and is responsive to the challenges of today and tomorrow. Trying to.
Why would it, maybe even if we move that sentence to the right following immediately after that today and tomorrow bit.
Yeah.
When I first read it, I was like, why is it, I get why not, but why not just these things? Like, there's a million things that don't belong in the document. Why are we calling out, these, couple things specifically?
Yeah.
It immediately made me think, oh, do other towns have it in there and we're like trying to exclude it ahead of time? Which I don't think is the case at all, right?
Yeah,
So-
right. I did speak to not limited to this list, but
True.
We do want to focus on some of this. Is very important, and I think that some of the difficulty I was having was right out of the gate. If this committee is recommending a town manager form of government, well, what does that encapsulate? Does that change a lot of these other things that we have on here immediately? So I think it's going to be I think Bob put a little bit of it at ease, because he says it, not necessarily because town manager or a special act with the town administrator, they seem to have a lot of the same powers, if that's how we go. But I just didn't know how that was going to affect the rest of these bullets.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's something the committee's going to have to work through and discuss, and if that's the recommendation, what comes with that recommendation?
Mm-hmm.
What are all the things that have to change
Right.
that come with that?
Where we say boards, committees, does it need to be boards, committees, commissions? I was trying to
Yeah,
think of
you're
all
right,
the
it would.
various
It
names
would,
of
yep. Yeah.
all the various organizations we have, and I think that covers them all.
Working groups.
I was thinking about working groups, but they're by definition ad hoc, right?
I did add the division of authorities between town manager / town administrator, whether, and the select board, because I think that's obviously critical in this. That's pretty much, like I said, some of this was added from our discussions, but a lot of this, I just kind of looking at some of the tried and true documents from recent town charters that I saw throughout the Commonwealth. And it varied so greatly, I can't even tell you how much, but it seemed like the further west I got, the more it was just really some real basic things that we're well past, so, but there was some good ideas in there, but a lot of it is some of the towns that are similar to us that we're going through.
But some of those towns may have just established a charter because they didn't have a charter, so it was
Yeah.
somewhat rudimentary because they just wanted to, again, almost codify it. So
Yeah.
put it into a charter so that they have something to
Yeah.
work on.
No, for sure, that's probably
I think
true.
that, where we don't have a charter, that's one of the things just going through, the name, it's not a charter review committee or commission. It's, we're looking at the potential of establishing this, right? So we're going to decide, I guess, tonight.
Oh, the actual
Even the
title.
name, what's that?
The title of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's either Littleton Charter Committee or Littleton Charter Commission.
Yeah, not a review.
And the only distinction that I'm aware of between a committee and a commission is a committee can have basically one of us on it. And at the federal level, a committee can involve, typically has legislators on it, whereas a commission doesn't have legislators on it,
So we would do a Littleton Charter Commission, is what you're saying.
which would open the opportunity for.
Anyone,
Yeah.
full open, yeah.
And I think most communities that do this call it a commission. To
Yeah, I mean, it was half.
afford them, a broader.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, I mean, that's just flavor to me. It's the dressing on the windows. It's really the meat of for
Yeah,
sure,
no,
we could change that,
yeah, and there's, yeah. Just-
because the words do mean something, so I think the commission probably makes more sense in our regard, where we don't already have a charter.
Right.
But let's get to the bullet piece.
Yep.
So I'm fine with all of this. If we think, I'd change the date to January 2025 as a
Sure.
start. And then we can, the rest, if May 2026 is doable, then I'm fine with all of that too. I think,
I'm not comfortable with January 2025. I'm comfortable with doing the appointments in January, but I'm not comfortable with getting them up
Okay,
and running
that's-
in January.
Oh, we can say no
I
earlier.
just think 'cause
You want to say no
we've got-
earlier
we've got
then?
Thanksgiving, we've got
Yeah.
Christmas, we've got New Year.
Yeah.
I'd rather not
Commence work
rush
no
it. I mean,
earlier
We've
than.
taken since when we were incorporated.
yeah.
I mean, I felt it was important to put dates in, maybe the start date
I think dates are
isn't.
important. I think dates
okay.
are important.
A deadline for applications sometime.
So do we
Pick a
wanna-
date in January, and then do
Work.
the appointment, and then they get to work once we appoint them.
Within a month or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we want to do appointments like at our first meeting in January? That timeframe?
You're letting it,
I think
everyone.
we put the deadlines just after the first of the year, like a week into the year.
Okay.
And then we have an opportunity to review, pull people in if we decide to do that, over the course of a meeting or two. So appointments in all likelihood would be at a meeting in February.
Our first meeting in
Just in
February.
my, just going on a
I think
calendar.
that's going to make the May date hard.
Yeah,
That's what
that
I'm
only
worried
gives them
about.
14
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to
months.
send it around town meeting, but this can be pushed to November town meeting, so
It-
I don't want to restrict.
These
Well,
things
you-
typically take a year to 18 months.
Yep.
For us to try to,
Yeah. Well, and if it needs to go to a ballot then it's going to take,
Okay.
so.
I think in terms of how many meetings we have in between, all due respect to to the gallery here, and I appreciate you're here, but I don't think it's going to widen our net a whole lot to repeat this 4 times over the course of 4 meetings.
Right.
We're not going to meet, we're not going to,
The same people are watching, whether they watch.
yeah. So I think, I think.
This is a lot of
our-
word of mouth, this is a lot of, sure, the broadcaster, maybe we can get in there.
Yeah.
It is what it is, but it is mostly word of mouth, trying to get people that we think might be interested in this, and then hopefully we grab, like Bob said, you get a few people that get pulled in that we didn't have any idea.
Yeah, I
You know,
think,
that-
I think our outreach efforts should be really intense over the next few weeks, but I don't necessarily think the number of meetings we have in between
Yeah.
is
I mean, we can,
that critical.
we can get on with LCTV, I can get on with Mark, and we can do a quick, that's another avenue, to say, here's what we're looking for, we're recruiting this is, maybe read a little bit of this,
Mm-hmm.
once it's done and polished.
So then, back to kind of Chuck's point, I mean, this says the goal is to wrap up by May of '26. Is now the goal more May of '27?
Or November of 20.
Well, if it needs to go to a ballot, are we going to do a ballot in November of '20?
well, we could,
Well, I guess there
we
will
could
be a
have it,
ballot.
we could have it on the
There will be a ballot in.
special
I
in
thought
the
it had to
fall.
go to town meeting and then ballot.
Yes.
Right,
Only goes to ballot if it passes at town
Correct.
meeting.
right, that's
so-
why I was trying to get it
But you
into
can
the
do
May.
it, you can put them back to back. They can go together, right? It doesn't have to be like separated by weeks or months,
True.
so.
But we could also.
But I guess I'm saying, like, the only
I
thing
guess
we
there'll be
know for
election
sure
in
is when
November
we,
of
when we
26
want to,
anyway.
which town
Yeah.
meeting we want to go to.
Yeah, we could put something on a
I'm just thinking that running an extra election,
midterm election.
so maybe the goal is November of '26.
Yeah, okay.
I'd include Action Unlimited. We don't have a newspaper, but, you know, one of the reasons maybe he went through 4 meetings is because, I don't know if Tingsboro still has a newspaper or not, but you know, maybe there was a higher likelihood that people were going to see it.
Are you
So,
from
definitely.
Littleton? Are you interested in town government? Yeah, you know,
But I mean,
This is gonna
Action
carry-
Unlimited does post a lot of, you know,
Yeah.
like calendar events and.
it does,
and
you're right.
Yeah. So I think we can pick a meeting in January where we do appointments. I don't care if it's the first one or this, you know, whatever the second one is on our news.
Yeah, okay.
As far as membership, I'm more in favor of everyone at large, just because it's not saying that we don't have a select board member on the committee, but I don't know that we designated one of us necessarily to do it. I don't see why.
One of us can apply if we
Right,
so choose.
right.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right way to do it. Everybody's on,
And I
same
don't
level.
want, like, and I'm not in favor of having like finance or school committee appointing someone, because then you're going to potentially get someone that's really not invested in this,
Yeah.
but it's their,
and each board
They step
changes.
back last.
Each board changes.
Yeah, I did
So-
see a lot, you know, probably half of the commissions had that, you know, school committee appointment will have 1 seat. But it was more so the ones that were much more directed, not as broad as we're trying to create a charter, it's more some of the charter review stuff. They were really isolating down to like 1 to 3 items that they were, so it made a little bit more sense if it was, theirs might have, a couple of them were just like budgeting and finance process. So it made sense to have a finance person.
For sure.
But-
having said that, I don't think it's a bad idea that, you know, go to a finance committee meeting and say, hey, we're doing this, if anyone's interested.
Oh, yeah, we've
Go
got
to
it.
a school
Sure.
committee meeting and say, hey, you
Yep.
know,
If for no other reason, to get another
Absolutely.
audience.
right, you get
Yeah.
another audience and
Yeah,
then.
let's get this on all the, you know, the board's agendas, this document as one of their items that they can just look at and say, give it out to the members.
Each of us can.
Get the word out, if they don't want to
Spread
do
out.
it, get the word out. You know,
Yeah.
that's another way to get the word out.
Yeah, we can split up the boards and do that.
So that being said, it's a good idea probably to have a little bit more time, like you had said, into January to get all that.
I don't want to shoehorn it in so we can get it by this date, and just, it's taken this long, and we, even amongst us, we've taken this
Right.
long to get to this point.
Right.
I'd rather not
Yeah.
be hasty. I'd rather get it
7 to
right.
9, I think is still a good, we don't have to say 7 or 9, I think 7 to 9. If we get 9 applicants that we're all comfortable with, or 9 nominees, then let's do it.
Yeah, but if we come
Make
to
it
7, we go 7, sure.
Yeah.
But it is 7 or 9, not 7 to 9, correct?
It's interesting, because I did see a lot of them had the 7 to 9, and there were a few that had 8.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, they're just never, because they're not voting on, like you would, it's not like the standard,
Yeah.
they're pretty much in sync. When I was looking at a lot of the votes, I'm trying to think of one that wasn't unanimous, because the board worked so hard together, the commissions, that they were pretty much unanimous all the way through. They would discuss things out, and then they would vote on it. So I think there was very few votes that weren't unanimous. So I don't think the 8 thing would ever come into a play with a 4-4. But we can just nominate 7 or 9. I mean, what's the,
Yeah, 8, I mean, the quorum's going to be 5 either way, whether it's 8 or 9.
right.
So looking at our proposed meeting schedule, we could do this either on the 13th or the 27th. The 27th will be a meeting surrounded by budget meetings, so I'm not sure how much budget talk there'll be at the 27th meeting to isolate this from the rest.
This might have to be a special meeting where, if we're just doing appointments.
Yeah, we could do that.
Not a bad idea.
Then it would have to be like
It could be a Tuesday.
February 3rd,
I mean, that's,
because the 13th is, or the 20th is Martin Luther King Day, so.
yeah. So February 3rd. I mean, that's a, if it can't happen, we just move it. I mean, but
Yeah,
I think
I
that's,
think that's a good goal.
Okay,
or if we get 4 applicants, and we got to think of another plan, right?
okay.
Okay. All right. back to the meat of this. That's what's important. Karen, what else do you have?
The fourth bullet,
Yep.
I would suggest we change that to consideration of dissolving or restructuring boards, committees, and commissions
Okay.
without saying, it's got to be redundant or outdated or judged. It could just be inefficient.
Yeah, so get rid of the word redundant or outdated.
Yeah, I would. And I
that
think restructuring should be
yeah.
part of it, part of the purview.
I like that.
And then I had a question. It says there's been no comprehensive review of the structure of town government in many years,
Yeah.
but we just got a report that was a structural review of,
It wasn't really comprehensive.
Oh, you're talking about the...
Department of Local Services.
yeah,
Yeah.
Sean
Department of
Cronin.
Revenue. Are we just thinking that that's not comprehensive?
I mean, I
Fair
think
point.
the last comprehensive review would have been the 2007 report, but I don't know. We can get rid of the word you're probably right. I
think that's a good tool for, it should be actually one of the things that we hand to any member.
yeah.
The most recent,
They
yeah.
absolutely should get that
Right,
report.
right.
Okay.
I'm just going to give you my comments because they're all grammar more than anything else. I mean,
Those were all,
I'm just- believe
those
me.
were all from Western Mass.
I was telling Chuck that earlier. I go, it's amazing. The further I got out west, some of the grammatical stuff got a little
no,
crazy.
I mean-
Speak a little differently, evidently. in Western.
other than what the only thing that I really said, I said, like, we should add what the expected time commitment is for the members.
Yeah.
Right, and the rest of it is
Yeah.
just
Okay.
grammar more than
When you
anything.
start saying A at the end of things,
I've gone too far west if we start saying.
or north.
Okay, so we're going to go at large, 7 to 9. We'll just, yeah, any other change, just send them over, CC everybody, and I'll
Okay,
make,
and do
especially the grammatical stuff. And then we'll,
you want to write up a
Get
little
this out.
paragraph for the newsletter to go out?
yeah, when's our next newsletter?
You need to submit it in the next couple of days.
Yeah,
So
okay,
I'll work with you on that.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is that on Wednesday? For the newsletter?
It was the 15th, whatever that was.
Anything else on this, or are we ready to move on?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm similar to what you said, Mark. There are some grammatical things, but that's all could be cleaned up.
Yeah,
Thanks for doing it.
it is interesting, looking at the 2007 report, Ryan showed just that at that time, there was no interest in a town manager. And there was what was the other surprise?
Or the charter.
Or a charter. There was no interest in a town manager or a town charter,
And there was no assistant town administrator.
right?
I mean, it was a different, it was.
So it's just a different time.
Almost 15 years ago.
Right.
It was very different.
So I think this is probably a really good thing. And maybe that comes out of this again. Maybe this group puts together and say, you know what, there's some things in here that obviously maybe our board's committee ideas change or appointed, but maybe the town government piece stays the same. It's not recommended at this time. It works. It works. If that happens, it happens. But that's what's going to be interesting. So.
At that point in time, it could have been political. It could have been the person that's sitting in that seat right now. We don't want to be a town manager.
Yeah, fair. No, that's
It could be. It could have been.
I'll take a few quick comments.
You had his hand up first.
Yeah, I don't want to see it. Talk to him.
It was saying the 672 Great Road. Mr. Chairman, I just want to make a comment, and that is, this document that you have for this charter, whenever you finalize it and you get the application, you need to tell us then and there, this is what it is, and here's the deadline date for you to submit if you want to be considered on the commission or whatever
Yep.
you're going to call it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob Eastman, 55 Genesis Street. I just wanted to go back to something Bob said. And what he said was their first attempt failed. right? And that was after 30 meetings. So I just want to make a suggestion. Time is not of the essence to do this. What is of the essence is to do it well.
Agreed.
And to take our time and do it right. And doing it right means getting out into the community through the process. And so when I think of calendars, I'm not thinking of town meetings like you guys do, right? I'm thinking of families and time, and when are we going to get people together to talk about this? Not the commission that's going to do the work, but the community that's going to have to be engaged to help and hear about the work. And so I don't think you really want to be, I'm all in favor of deadlines. Sure, we all need a goal to hit, but the goal to hit is if all you're doing is hitting a goal to the exclusion of getting your community engaged in the process, you're going to lose a town meeting.
Right.
We've learned that multiple times in the last 2 years. We don't want to do that with this. We want to pass it because whatever it is, because our community accepts it and wants it. That was all.
Thank you.
Deadlines are-
So maybe we put in the goal.
Well, we can
We can say
always
November.
extend time limit. It's just,
Right.
Well, my comment was really around the May.
Yeah, I think the May is,
That's what it says is the
30
goal.
meetings and the community
Yeah.
engagement, when you have gone through 2 cycles of it.
agreed. Okay, so, moving on. Paint stewardship.
Sure. If I could introduce Tom, come on up. This is Tom Irwin. He comes to us from Dalton, Mass.
That's in the western part of the state.
It is a western part. I was going to
Do
try
you have a
to
town charter?
we try to warn
are you
you,
sure it's in
Do you
Massachusetts?
have a town administrator or town manager?
So we were looking over your handout, and there were some things we redlined.
but
Was that a grammar issue?
just very quickly, Tom this is a project that he's been working on in his retirement, and it's something that he presented to us. We have a letter of support for this that he's asking the board to sign on to tonight. We just wanted to, he's been traveling throughout the state, I believe, with doing this.
Correct.
So, again, this is a really interesting project that he's working on, and I'll turn it over to Tom to explain.
Before we go any further, I don't believe Dalton, Mass. is a real place.
It's actually in New York. It's far enough west, it's,
Is it?
yeah, basically New York.
I truly thought I knew every town in Massachusetts.
You never heard of Dalton?
No.
It's probably going to get served by this Route 2 rail that we're...
Okay.
Actually, all currency stock is manufactured in Dalton for the entirety of North America.
Wow.
That's right.
Just a little factoid.
That's interesting.
So good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak about paint stewardship. As you know, my name is Tom Irwin. I'm from Dalton, and I'm retired. But in my retirement, I wanted to participate in projects that have potential to help future generations. So as a member of Dalton's Waste Management Committee, when it became clear that paint stewardship would begin improving the waste problem most Massachusetts towns face, would save towns money, and positively impact the climate change problem, I became an advocate. Paint stewardship, as you probably know, is a program where unwanted latex or oil-based paint, which the paints that are accepted are in your first handout, can be returned to any participating paint retail store any day they're open without a disposal cost and without regard for where the paint was purchased or when it was purchased. This program is voluntary for retailers and for transfer stations. As you can see in your second handout, retailers in Vermont, in bold, come and go from the program as suits their business. The cost to consumers is a 75-cent to $1 eco fee per gallon paid at time of purchase. That fee is only $1.75, not $3.75 for 5 gallons. They're not trying to make a profit. The collected latex is hauled to reprocessing plants by the paint manufacturers, reblended to like-new condition, and sold for at most 50% of original cost to entities such as Habitat for Humanity or Restore. The oil-based paints are most often used as co-fuels in cement plants, where the ash becomes part of the product concrete. As a result, these materials do not end up in landfills. This program has been working in 10 states, including our neighboring states of Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maine, Vermont, and New York. As they say sometimes here in the East, we're just late to the party. The key benefits to Littleton. First, it will be a service Littleton residents will value. Notably, roughly 40% of the paint returned to paint retailers just over our borders in adjoining states with the law is coming from Massachusetts residents. Also, of 1,100 residents dropping off items at household hazardous waste day events across the state, 90% signed petitions asking their representatives to become supporters of this legislation. This suggests that 90% of Littleton's residents with unwanted paint in their basements, and I'll bet there are many, would deeply appreciate having this law. Second, it will present no cost to Littleton or any municipality, and will decrease household hazardous waste day costs, freeing RDP money for Littleton to address other important solid waste issues. And third, paint stewardship as a model, since it was constructed through cooperation, will be a great model for future stewardship legislation that will address larger items such as mattresses, solar panels, rechargeable lithium batteries, and packaging. The resolution being considered tonight, which is your third handout, is consistent with the state's plans. There is no arm twisting. The MMA as a supporter is noted in their testimony to the Environment and Natural Resources Committee, which is your fourth handout. The Mass DP in their 2030 Solid Waste Master Plan, which is your fifth handout, calls out product DPR in general and paint DPR in particular as key contributors to moving the state towards the goal of zero waste. Of particular note, this master plan calls for a 30% reduction in waste by 2030 and a 90% reduction by 2050. And without stewardship programs, I find it hard to imagine how we can possibly achieve these goals. Fortunately, support for this legislation is broad. Paint manufacturers and paint retailers who work together with consumer groups and state agencies over a period of 6 years to craft this law are supporters. Support also comes from, as we know and mentioned, the 90% of people with unwanted paint in their basements, the 28 reps and 12 senators from both parties who sponsor or co-sponsor this bill, and if you look at your sixth handout, the 99 municipalities to date that have passed similar resolutions or endorsements. So what is next? Legislators have made it clear that in order for paint stewardship to receive serious consideration and the support of leadership to make it the law, municipalities must demonstrate that addressing the solid waste issue, beginning with paint stewardship, is a municipal priority. In July, 78 municipalities, which represented 27% of the state's population, had made statements of support. This caused the bill to be considered but did not compel sufficient leadership support to send the bill to the floor for a vote. More support was clearly needed. Therefore, with this in mind, and since Littleton residents will appreciate this law, and since this law will save Littleton money, and since reducing waste is critical to our future, I respectfully request the Littleton Select Board add their valued endorsement of paint stewardship by passing their supportive resolution. I thank you for your consideration of this request and your attention.
Thank you.
I guess the only question I have is, why not? Why, I'm trying to, so I have to assume that everybody that you've come and spoke to, I'm trying to figure out the reason why they would say, no, we don't like this program. Is there some cost to it that I'm missing? And why wasn't there enough support to get a bill? What would be, at the legislative level, why would there be a no at the
There is no no at the legislative level, there's just no yes.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to be facetious. The issue is the standard problem of 7,000 bills being logged at the beginning of the session and only 4% of them being passed, and they only pass those things that save beaucoup money or have screaming hordes pounding at their doors. And it only saves $3 million collectively, which is great for all of us individually, but it's chump change for the state. And to date, there hasn't been any evidence that the public was really aware.
Right.
In fact, when I went to farmers markets to collect signatures, and I did so down in Westfield, close enough to the Connecticut border that there was not uncommon to have Connecticut people come up. 40% of the people in Connecticut already have the law, but did not know that they had the law. So it's an issue of just awareness of the law is really what has been the impediment. But since over the last 2 years, as I've been working on this, the flow of paint to our adjoining states has actually increased. So the desire is there, and your resolution makes that clearer to the legislature. And this is the 7th legislative session in which this bill has been submitted for consideration.
Okay, through the chair, so if, let's just say that it doesn't pass the next one or the next one, is there something Littleton can do bylaw-wise to pass something?
You're in the same pickle that Dalton's in.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't be here today if I could have done it with a bylaw. I would have just done it, said thank you, and we would have been on our way. But we need the state, the issue is, it's an antitrust issue. If that 75 cents we collect as an echo fee, which really kind of fully gives us the true cost of paint, it's that 75 cents that a class action suit, an antitrust suit, could be brought against the nonprofit that the paint retailers or paint manufacturers have created, that could just be crushed by that. They would just be bankrupted overnight. And so that's why it has to be a state law.
Thank you.
And to one other little point that you mentioned, I was worried that this sounded too good to be true. So I went to Vermont, New York, and Connecticut and quizzed retailers and quizzed consumers to make sure that this thing did not have a snag that I was unaware of. And nobody complained, which made me feel more comfortable.
Could you clarify where the fee goes?
Oh, it goes straight to Paint Care. Those are the guys who are responsible. That's the nonprofit set up by the paint manufacturers to handle all the logistics of getting that paint from the collection points to the reprocessing plants and getting the reprocessing done. It makes sure that there's a third-party audit that's done annually for each state that goes to the DEP of each state for a review. It pays the state to be able to do that review as well as to doing the third-party audit. And there are administrators for each state so that there is somebody at the end of the phone when the retailer calls and say, hey, look, I got a full tote. And the responsiveness has been great, anywhere from 2 to 4 business days between the call and the truck showing up with the empty tote and taking the full away.
And how, that 75 cents is enough? That's not something that's going to be upped in a year or two to pay for the expenses, or?
I can only share history. In Connecticut, in 2010, when the law was passed, the fee was set at 75 cents. In 2024, the fee in Connecticut is 75 cents. The same is true with Rhode Island and Maine. In Vermont, my understanding is that the fee was initially set at 99 cents, but Massachusetts and New Hampshire apparently returned enough paint to Vermont that they had to up their fee as of May 1st this year to $1.35. Hopefully when New Hampshire passes their law next session and Massachusetts passes our law next session, that fee can drop back to 99 cents.
Great. I think it's all great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for doing this.
My pleasure.
There is a request to sign a letter of support. There is a motion.
To go to the legislature.
That's now usually there, but now behind you, Mr. Clerk.
Everyone ready for a motion?
Yeah, I think so.
Move that the select board vote to endorse a resolution in support of paint stewardship legislation.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your support.
Have you seen the episode of Dirty Jobs? Where they go to a plant in California that's doing all the recycling and creating the gallons upon gallons of the paint for these uses that you just stated.
Yep. We fortunately also have a reprocessing plant in Hanover, Massachusetts.
Really?
It's called Recolor, and they will be able to expand, hopefully, when this legislation passes.
Great.
That would be great.
So, thank you very much for your
Thank you.
support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate you.
Do we want to send a copy of this to Jim and Jamie?
I would appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That'd be excellent.
Are you visiting communities around us as well?
I am.
Those already signed, right?
They have. Lancaster's already signed, Harvard's already signed.
Good work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Appreciate you. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
doing it. That's a good point.
Public input?
Go up to the podium. Mark, get one.
Mark 575 Etzel. I just have to say, I bought that paint at Habitat for Humanity Restore. Perfectly good paint.
Oh, good.
Works fine.
That's great.
That's
Thanks.
awesome, thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
My name right?
Members update? What is that?
Nothing for me.
Gary?
Veterans Day, just thank everybody that came out for the ceremony. I did talk to Jim about getting it a little more advertised because with through the John, our veterans agent, just getting at least up on his site or at least out on the, because I did have a lot of people asking if it was going on this year. And thank you for the Rotary once again for putting on a lunch for the friends and families after the Veterans Day event. TRED, I was attended a TRED meeting for the breakout of the monies and where they're going to go, to what individuals and households need the most assistance. Just a reminder that TRED is heavily dependent on donations, so it's just one of those things, that we, I think, as elected leaders in town can continue to reach out to community members, businesses. It's a cause. It's a great need. We had $28,000, I think, that we divided amongst many families, and I think we can do better. I think we can really this program can make a very large impact. So that's all I have.
Staying with the vets, Friends of Littleton Veterans held a fundraiser, a trivia night on Saturday night.
How'd that go, Gary?
We were back on top of the pile. We are the champions.
Yeah, the Friends of Littleton Veterans.
I should have worn my gold medal, but
Friends of Littleton Veterans won the past couple of years, unseating Mr. Houston, Mr. Wilson's team of Never Ask for Directions, but they took back the title this year. But it was a great night. A lot of fun was had, and raised some nice funds for the veteran services.
That's great.
Staying in the trivia night space, Parks, Recreation, Community Education is holding a trivia night on December the 5th. It's being held at the Outlook Restaurant at Neshoba Ski Area, and it is being held to support holiday helpers. So it's a big fundraiser to try to raise some money to help pay for gifts and
yeah, it's a
a
huge program.
It's unbelievable.
It's a major undertaking.
Yeah,
It's
it's awesome. They do a great job. So if you're looking to challenge, never ask for directions.
Too small a team.
But that is December 5th, and I believe it's at 7 o'clock, and they're doing cocktails and dinner, and you can buy off the Outlook menu. And then trivia starts at 7:45. And it's going to have live music. A lot of local businesses are sponsoring the music and different components. So it's should be a great event.
Does Adam have anything going on this weekend?
He does. So this weekend, Littleton High School is, the performance opens on Friday night for The Man Who Came to Dinner. And that's 7 o'clock on Friday night, 7 o'clock on Saturday night, and 2 p.m. on Sunday. Check me if I'm wrong. I'm sure he will. Thank you for reminding me. Yeah. I would definitely been in the doghouse. So tickets are available at the door, or you can go online. You can find them on Facebook, or just call Adam directly. I can give you his number right now. Thank you.
Not much. I was out of town most of the time. It felt like between our last meeting and tonight. But the Clean Lakes Committee met, and I was able to dial into that one. They're continuing to work on their budget. I think they're getting in close to the finish line on that. They're going to be going in front of the Parks and Rec Commission to talk to them about working out a funding source through Parks and Rec for Long Lake projects. And they'll be coming to talk to us as well.
Mark, we're going to throw one more in there. It's another shout out to Rotary. Rotary had a food drive at in front of Donlands for a couple of weekends leading up for Thanksgiving, and they did kind of a specific list for folks to support Loaves and Fishes, and they collected just shy of, I think, 450 pounds of food. They were kind of hoping to get to 500, but didn't quite get there. They're just shy. So once again, Rotary's stepping up, and you know, this isn't necessarily a fundraiser, but they did get some funds as well to help support Loaves and Fishes. So it's just Littleton community helping Littleton folks and surrounding communities.
Okay, so I was also at the Veterans Day. Thank you for everyone that attended, that there was, given the lack of notice, there was a pretty good crowd, and it was nice that it wasn't rainy, so that was an extra bonus. I have been working with the Affordable Housing Trust on a couple grants. As you might remember, we received a grant from the state for $120,000 to use for emergency home repairs for and improvements, you know, age-in-place type improvements. So the Affordable Housing Trust is finalizing the application for that grant now. We're waiting on the contract from the state, and then once we have that in place, we'll be ready to hit the ground on that. I'm also working with Ms. Houston on some other potential grant applications, and I will actually be reaching out to our town administrator to write a letter for support on one of these grants shortly. I spent, it seems like forever ago, but I spent most of the day at the polls for election day. And I want to say that Diane runs an incredibly smooth machine. You know, whenever there was a complaint or a problem between her and Andrew, it was addressed very quickly. And I think I spent probably 10 hours there and at the polls that day, and like Mr. Sanders and several other people were there way longer than I was. So thank you for everyone that volunteered and helped. I signed up for the Mass Champions Institute, which we're reviewing complete streets type work. I met with DPW Director Yonley today to talk about what we're doing with our complete streets, and I'm going to meet with, I'm hoping to go to the BPAC meeting tomorrow and get them to start championing a update to the complete streets priority map. The Conservation Commission held an event at Dirigible to recognize all the land stewards for all the work that they do in town. Thank you for everyone that does they do an incredible amount of work to keep our trails safe. And I also wanted to call out Jim O'Neill, who recently stepped down after I don't know how many years of being the head trail steward.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and it's big shoes someone's going to fill. I think Alyssa and Dustin are going to kind of step up in that role. Good luck to both of them. And I'm sure they're always looking for more volunteers, so reach out. I was at the planning board meeting last week, and there's a lot of discussion going on around what happens to the 31 Shattuck Street building once in the Lapoli development, and we need to kind of start moving that process along and figure out what's going on for them and others. There's a lot of interest in the building and what our plan is, and we kind of have to step up soon. So.
What is our plan?
Well, I think we need to come up with a plan.
Okay.
Right. So, 18, almost 2 years ago now, we put out the RFI. We did a feasibility study on the building before we built before the senior center was done. So we need to update the feasibility study with whatever departments are left in the building and figure out after, between the senior center and Park and Rec and the school moving out, what we're going to do. So
So is that something we're gonna do with like outside money, or is that something that's?
I don't know how
or
we're going to
outside
update
group,
it,
Rather.
so.
We're reaching out to the two who did it before, because they're also under contract for the senior center.
Oh, perfect.
So we'll have an offline conversation.
That's all I have. Do you have any updates on the other projects in town?
Again,
What-
sneak into Complete Streets. Have you been up Foster Street lately?
Yes,
There's a lot of work going on.
yes.
Yeah, the bike path, they're from Balsam all the way up to Taylor. They're definitely, work is underway.
Can I jump in before you do?
Please
Just
do.
staying on Foster. I don't know if you guys are getting phone calls as well. I've gotten a few phone calls about what's happening behind Foster Street in the 245, Robert Long's property.
Yep.
There's been a lot of clearing going on. There's a gravel road going out back, and there's quite a bit of equipment down there. So,
Sanctuary?
No.
No.
No, the property
no,
next to the
Foster Street,
MBTA.
just
Oh, I'm
before
sorry.
the train station.
Oh,
down
right,
and back.
right. Okay,
But there's
thank you.
been no permits pulled or
Right,
anything.
so
It's not-
just to make you aware, I had that same inquiry, people had asked me about it, so that space is being used as a staging area for the MassDOT work that's taking place on Foster Street right now, so that's what
So
they're
he's leasing that to MassDOT to be able to use it.
temporarily.
Okay.
Mhm.
And they cleared
A
quite a
lot,
bit.
yeah, no, that's.
Well, that solves some of the confusion, because I did see some chatter on Facebook, and I had even chimed in, I go, that's not MassDOT, that's not their land, but now I understand it.
Yeah,
Okay, so they were leased.
and yeah, they needed a lay-down area.
Yep. Yeah.
Thanks for that clarification.
I was curious myself when I heard about it.
So on the town side, there's a school building committee Shaker Lane tour.
Is everybody, we can get to that, I just wanted to let everybody else go. Matt?
Yep.
Okay.
You're
okay, okay, sure. Yeah, tomorrow night, Shaker Lane School Building Committee is meeting from 6 to 6:30. There'll be a building tour beginning at 6:30 PM, and then we're going to be doing a question and answer after that. So at the business meeting, there'll be a vote taken to recommend the preferred schematic report. So from the last update that was provided at town meeting, we were looking at 3 options. One of them was a rehabilitation of the existing school, and the 2 others were basically to build a new school at the lower field. At our last meeting, a recommendation was made from the design subcommittee for what they're calling the upper field option, which is a little further away.
It's Cooper Field.
Tucked
It's
in the
the one
back.
in the back.
Thank you, yes, right. So the recommendation, or the request would then to be moving forward with that at our meeting tomorrow.
That was referred to as 3.2 at town meeting.
So there's been progress on that, and I think for tomorrow's meeting, we have about 30 people already signed up for the tour and information session.
And just, I know the finance team has been meeting a lot, trying to work some of the numbers and discussion down from town meeting, so hopefully we have better news closer as we move along.
Okay. Nothing else? We'll move on to the main.
Do you have anything?
Well, I mean, I can just review quickly what I shared the other day. The Neshoba Valley Medical Center, the chiefs within the area that are being affected, they continue to meet and review a number of different data points that could be affecting services. One of the things that came out that the chief had, as he's continues his data data logging with things specific to Littleton. The chief saw about a 7-minute increase from 20 to 27 minutes in the time at the hospital over the past 457 transports, which is between August and October. Which resulted in about 50 hours of cumulative time that was tied up with personnel with that. DPH did provide a grant for $250,000, and the chiefs are continue to request additional funds that will, because of the overtime that all communities have been affected, and about expanding the eligibility for the funds. Right now, it's really for training and purchasing of technology upgrades, but they did say that you could buy an ambulance with it. That $250,000 will only get you a half an ambulance, quite honestly. And, but unfortunately, it has to be spent by December 31st of 2025, and you're 2 years out at least before you even
See the ambulance.
So, and it has to be, and you have to take possession of the ambulance and spend the money by December of 2025. Get that. Green Communities, Diane Dickinson, who has worked very, very hard on it. She submitted the town's FY24 Green Communities Annual Update, which is required. We have King Street Commons, an update. Maren had some offline conversations with the Mr. Lepoli's new real estate and development team member for Lepoli Development, and they will be, the Lepoli team will be at the upcoming planning board meeting on January 9th, anticipated to include the anticipated phasing and update on the utility infrastructure design and bid process and outlook for reuse of existing buildings. Vertical construction will start as soon as 2025, and the infrastructure will start in the spring of 25. Phase 1 in the vertical construction will be first an apartment building, that will be followed shortly by 2 retail buildings, and then the next apartment building. Utility and infrastructure design is on schedule. And we will also having conversations on a groundbreaking ceremony, which is looking for March of 2025. We have submitted a support letter to the 495 Metro West Partnership, preparing their application for the Massachusetts Office of Business Development for the FY25 Regional Economic Development Organization Grant, or REDO program. What that does, it helps identifying public funds sources for business activity, furnishing advice and assistance to businesses, maintaining a network of public and private expertise related to regional assets, partnering with state and quasi-public agencies to jointly consult with businesses, and assisting municipalities with economic development efforts, including coordination with the working group of the 495 West Planning and Economic Development Group. Lastly, just want to touch there was basically a kickoff meeting with we have one of 4 communities, if you remember, with Pepperell, Dunstable, and Townsend, that we received an energy efficiency and conservation block grant. And as a result of that, they hit some high notes with a meeting the other day that Pepperell is the lead town. They will take care of all the administration of the grant activities, and through the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, a clean energy manager will be hired that will be shared by all of the communities, and it's something that look forward to continuing forward, and it looks like it's going to be. I just saw it. I'm sorry. The hiring of that manager position, in all likelihood, will be late January, early February. And looking forward to working with the other communities and the Sustainability Committee and moving forward. And that's it. And let me just say one more thing. We do have a new hire. is it a new administration hire that will be responsible for the administrative service between the Board of Health and Conservation Commission. So please, any select board member in the area, and you see a new friendly face, say hello.
When do they
Thank you.
start?
What's that?
Have they started, or?
Megan is her first name, and if you, I can look back at my emails. She is going to start next week, next Monday.
Thank you.
Mark, I had just a question that Jim might know. Northern Macon Trust, they didn't do a groundbreaking.
No.
They're already digging. I saw their whole.
Right, that was their schedule that I
They
had shared
didn't want any
before.
PR for anything that
No,
they're doing.
they just wanted to just quickly go as quick as can. So I think their real goal is to looking at the finished product and then the ribbon cutting and everything like that, but the groundbreaking is they just soon continue past, but, okay, but for the ribbon cutting, for the opening,
Yeah.
definitely.
Town meeting?
Okay. So we've got two draft schedules in front of you. The first is for our annual town meeting schedule. This delineates our meetings that we'll be having over the course of the first, 5 months of 2025. This also spells out when the voter petition zoning articles would be in, which is February 10th. Deadlines for boards and committees and commissions to submit draft articles, March 24th, etc. We have town meeting, we've checked with the town clerk and the town moderator, and we're recommending the town meeting take place on Tuesday, May 6th. And with that, the town election would take place on Saturday, May 10th. So all pretty standard stuff, but we always like to put that in front of the board and make sure you know what the schedule is for the upcoming, upcoming 5 or so months.
We've confirmed the date with the school.
Yes. We have a motion behind you if you...
I'm out of country February 10th.
Move that the select board vote to approve the May 6, 2025 annual town meeting schedule.
Second?
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
And next piece is your proposed meeting schedule for January through June of 2025 for select board meetings. Items of note, we are looking to have a joint budget committee meeting or a joint budget meeting with the Finance Committee on Tuesday, January 21st, which is the day after Martin Luther King Day, and Tuesday, January 28th, which will lead up to our Super Saturday joint budget meeting, which is scheduled for Saturday, February 1st. So again, this is similar to what we've done in the past by bringing departments to these meetings. They'll have a chance to present in tandem to both the Select Board and the Finance Committee at the same time. Finance Committee will be separately having their liaisons meeting with those department heads and doing follow-up with them. Again, town meeting scheduled on May 6th and the town election for May 10th. So we tried to stay away from any of the holidays. There's sometimes we had to have a meeting on a Tuesday because of a holiday, but that's basically basically the sort of approach that we've had to this is stay away from the holidays and keep us on schedule and on track for our Tuesday, May 6th annual town meeting. Maybe other meetings we need to cover or call here and there, depending on what the need is, but this is sort of our start point, and traditionally what we typically do as a committee to support to move forward.
Are we not going to do a meeting with, like, I think Matthew, I think you and I were the only ones that were on the board last time we did it. I'm not sure, maybe like some of you guys short, but we did it in 103 where we had just kind of a round table and
The department heads.
with department heads.
Yeah.
I felt as though we benefited from that because prior to going to Super Saturday, we had an idea of some of the bigger rocks, some of the bigger things that they were looking at. Plus, it gave them an opportunity to sit down with us in a group setting, and
Yeah, I thought that was valuable.
it was good sharing.
Sure, sure. And, we have our department head meetings every Monday at 9 a.m. when we have our standard meeting, so we could easily do that again. And I mean, when would you anticipate, what would be ideal timing, Chuck, that you think it would make sense?
I mean, I looked at the whole board, but certainly at a department head meeting, which is at 9 to 10 on a Monday morning?
Basically, yes.
It's the morning of a select board meeting, not every Monday.
Yeah, right. So we could do it Monday, January 27th, if we wanted to add that.
I have no idea. If anything during work hours, I have no idea what my schedule is going to be, not necessarily from day to day, but sometimes from day to day. Last week, I didn't know what was going on from day to day. This week I happen to know that I'll be in Syracuse starting Wednesday, but
So just do you think that meeting should be held sooner or later? I mean, are you looking?
definitely should be done before the Super Saturday meeting.
I think it should be done before the joint meetings. I mean, I think
I
that's
agree with
the
you.
reason that we do it, is so
Right.
we go into those meetings with some
With a little
more
bit of knowledge.
context about all the things that we know about.
All right.
So that would be the
Sooner than later.
So
the
like-
first one in January would be
So the
ideal.
13th?
Yeah, Monday, January 13th.
If possible, yeah.
Okay.
So Monday, January 13th,
At 9 a.m.
at the 9 o'clock meeting.
Yeah.
How's that work for everybody? Well, or at least
No.
put it down on the calendar. We won't make a guarantee.
Jim, that's
right.
going to work, so no, it
Okay.
doesn't work, but I
Okay.
mean,
Right? That's Jim, that's your
some of us
meeting?
can make it.
What's that?
That's your meeting?
Yes.
You don't have anything big planned, I hope.
I'm sorry?
You have nothing big planned that day, correct?
You try to keep that to an hour.
No, sir.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, yeah.
We're pretty good about that.
So, I mean, I think that we could probably take up at least an hour just with that session, and then, I mean, you use that every other week to,
Yeah, but
stuff done.
it could easily involve the board, it's fine, makes good sense. So, we can add that in, so, we can amend the agenda with that, that's fine.
so it's the 13th.
Monday, January 13th, yes.
Locked in.
Okay. Just before, were you hoping to do the charter on one of these? We talked about doing it potentially off. I didn't know if you wanted to schedule that now.
Oh, yeah.
Or just say we're going to target the 10th.
Was
Yeah,
it
I think-
the 13th, you mean?
Well, you said you
No,
were going to be here.
February
on the
10th, I think.
Oh, February 10th, oh.
Yeah, February 10th I won't be.
Okay.
So we could target one of those or schedule something we don't have to do it now, I guess,
Okay.
either, so. Well, if you're putting out the letter, we probably should do it now, because you're going to put in the date, right?
Yeah.
I know you were trying to stay away from Washington's birthday week, but will we do it Tuesday, February 18th?
Well, we could do that, or.
For us?
Or February 3rd. Just do that one item on February 3rd.
We could do the 3rd. We don't have a meeting that week.
Yep.
I'm fine if you want to do it, well, you said you're not here on the 10th, so
Right.
we'd either do it the 3rd or the 27th, but that's going to be right in the middle of the budget stuff. So I'm fine if we want to do it on the 3rd and just have that one item. Though we never seem to stick to just one item.
Right. I don't mind doing it any other day either. I mean, it doesn't have to be on a Monday.
Well, you just lay down the walls right now. That's the only item we're going to have on that
Yeah,
agenda.
let's do it on the 3rd.
Okay, so we'll add the 3rd in, and
Okay.
it's a one item a meeting.
Okay. That's review applications and make,
And make
and
appointments.
board. Okay.
Yep.
So move that the select board vote to approve the January 2025 to June 2025 meeting schedule as amended.
Second?
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, orchard update.
Okay. We are meeting MAPC on this Friday.
We are-
Sarah, sorry?
We're meeting,
We are meeting at the Orchard.
Yes.
With some of the representatives from MAPC so they can view the property, because we are moving forward with MAPC on the education and public outreach initiative that we have been discussing. So they're going to come visit the orchard this Friday, and Sarah Seward is going to, and Mark are both going to be there, along with me. Mark and I met with Bransfield a week ago, and we, I think, at least have enough to begin the process of asking council to draft a lease, which we will obviously bring here to discuss. So that's what's going on there, and I think the only other thing I can think of right now is I saw that Ryan, you told us that Classic Construction had just finished up with the work.
They're
Or was
close,
nearly finished
yeah.
up with the
They're
work
almost done.
on the barn. So I think that's where we're at right now with the orchard.
We're still have the deadline of December 31st for a lease. So we're going to have to get cranking on the meetings on that. There have been comments from residents about, questions about the use of the land going forward. And I think if the lease negotiations are progressing well, at some point, you and I and Bransfield should have a meeting where the public can come in and ask questions so that we're not trying to represent his position. And we can, and if there's things that we should put in the lease based on those comments, we'll incorporate them.
And then the only other, I guess, another thing that I just remembered is Linda Stein from the Historical Commission has forwarded some language that they want to send to the state in order to begin the process of adding a historical restriction on this barn. And so she wanted some feedback on that.
And Mark, just to add one other thing too.
I don't even know about that. Where did that come from?
So that was the working group wanted to protect the barn and the house because those are not protected by an agricultural preservation restriction, and they could potentially be sold to a third party. We wanted to make sure that the barn especially was protected because it's quite old and historic, and we don't want there to be any significant changes to it.
I mean, it significantly handcuffs what can be done to that barn to make it operational.
Less so than an agricultural restriction does.
Is it less?
It is less.
We can define the terms of what we want when we create the historic, like the items inside it that we want to, like we could say it's just the outer shell, or if there are specific features that we can highlight. We don't need to say it needs to be maintained in the pristine condition that it is. And the truth is, it's been added to and modified over the years many, many times. So I don't think we're trying to keep it as this, it's not going to be a museum, it's going to be a working barn. We just don't want someone to tear it down and build some giant steel shed there.
This is something we can get the Historical Commission in front of us to talk about.
I'm sure, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, because
Is there any other kind of restriction or because with the Historical Society, if we do put a historical restriction on it, it has to be held by somebody that's not us.
Right, so the other option would be an adding it to the agricultural preservation restriction, which we talked about. That has the same caveat. But yeah, I think, we could have a deed restriction.
I was just going to say, we could add something to the
Which
deed.
I guess can last a maximum of 30 years. So we were looking for something more permanent. But yeah, it would require someone to maintain the historical preservation restriction.
So these are just preliminary discussions. There's nothing set
Yeah.
in stone on any of this, on what actually comes out of it, right? So-
I mean, and obviously it would probably be a town meeting vote for the barn in order to put it into a restriction. Didn't we do that with Robinson? I'm trying to remember
No.
the process for the historical
No,
restriction.
we
Did
care custody control
Okay,
of the
all
select
right, so
board.
then it would be us. We would have to vote on it.
I mean, I would definitely need to know a lot more about it. I didn't realize the barn was aged, how old the barn is.
1700s,
Yeah.
yeah.
We just haven't discussed it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why it's surprising.
No, it's quite old.
Okay.
Mark, if I could just add to, the Conscom had asked to be placed on the select board agenda in January, I think at the January 13th meeting.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to discuss the parcel of land, I think it's 71 or whatever, that we were potentially going to vote at the last town meeting, but didn't, so.
Okay.
They had asked that, so that's, we're talking calendars, something else for you to be aware
Yep.
of.
Okay. Any other questions about the orchard?
The restriction we put on the lower barn, as well as the upper barn?
No, so the lower barn is, I'm not 100% sure of the status, but I believe that lower barn is included in the agricultural preservation restriction on that section of the land.
I don't think
No,
that's on any
it's not part of the ag restriction.
So there's little need of having a restriction if we own it, because we already can control.
Right.
So this was started as a part of the process of, if we were going to sell it, how do we make sure that it stays in the character?
Deed restriction,
Right.
but again, it's only,
So-
it's,
Right.
not
The lower barn hasn't been talked about at all, because there was never any,
wasn't on the table.
it was never on the table for being sold. So this is just going along the next stages in the process. If we did decide to sell it, how we could help preserve it, so.
Is 30 years absolutely the max for
I
a deed
don't
restriction?
know. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
That there are, I know that it's not in perpetuity. The deed restrictions are not permanent, for whatever reason.
Kristen Kazokis, Cottage Way. I was just wondering if you might be able to step out the lease process? Because will you be speaking with Bransfield again? Like, does it come back to the board?
Yeah.
It's kind of,
So we haven't, we are going to send an outline or skeleton to town council. They're going to draft a lease, and then we will negotiate with Bransfield back and forth to determine whether or not we can reach some agreement on terms. And at that point, this board will have to approve it. And I think we have just discussed, Mark just mentioned, like, we should have a public meeting with him so that he can discuss his use of the property, like, and some of the, what the restrictions might be on, if there are issues with people worried about noise, or I don't know what, or use of things because they're abutters, then that can all be discussed in public so that people can have their input on it. And we'll take all that into consideration and then figure out whether we can finish a lease if we can agree on terms.
so I know that you guys spoke about a December 15th deadline for the lease.
December 31st is
We're
our.
trying to get it by the end of the year,
But by the end of the year. So would that mean your vote would be the end of the year, or like what?
I think that we would like to have agreement in all but the smallest details by the end of the year, so that we know whether or not we're going to be able to get to the end of a lease. So I would think that, like, the public input would need to happen before then.
Yeah, so is it something early December? Is that kind of what you're thinking? And
I would say,
gonna have to be.
I'd say early to mid-December, yeah.
okay, and I guess we've already talked at this meeting, or you have already talked about how hard it is to get the word out on things. As an LCT member, if we can help with getting the word out, or if there's, I don't know if we need to put something in the newsletter to let folks know that this meeting might be coming up at some point, just so that people are aware of it. I would just say that it would be really important for the public to be able to have this opportunity.
We will try and get
please.
it out through as many channels as we can. The newsletter won't be an option because the meeting's not scheduled yet, and the newsletter deadline is very soon.
Okay, will there be a December?
The December newsletter deadline is very
that's the
soon,
one,
so.
okay.
But we'll make sure we let Vin know,
Yeah,
right?
I'm not sure if he's still I can touch base with him about
Okay.
that.
But even so, he still has that list
Yeah.
of people who are interested. We'll definitely share it with LCT.
Okay.
We can ask Nancy to put it on the website, perhaps do an email blast.
And we can do a keep your eye out on the newsletter.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be great,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, just because people may not know that this is an option for them to even attend.
Yep.
And if the lease falls through, it kind of sets you up for the January meetings,
Right.
right?
That's right.
I guess my other question, if I may, is there was the whole contingency about Bransfield wanting to buy the house and the barn. So what's happened?
It's
as a
not
result?
part of this discussion. It can't be part of this discussion.
Okay, all right,
So it's separate.
all right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
George Senior, 672 Great Road. Mr. Chairman, about this two facilities there, the barn and the house, what is the status on this? Are the town trying to keep these two items? And if so, how are they going to maintain? Where's the money going to come from to do that?
So at the moment, we don't have permission to sell. There's three main structures. There's two barns and the house. We do not have permission to sell them. We are trying to lease the two barn, at least one of the barns, if not both of the barns. The house isn't in any discussions at all at this point. It will be something that comes up either if the lease falls through or if the lease goes, either way, after the lease is either agreed to or not, the house will be the next thing that we have to address. The house, I believe, is buttoned up as close as we can for weather tightness, and the barn that's what we're finishing up right now.
So the question on the barn, I hear you talk about leasing that. If you lease it, then you're going to put the requirement on, excuse me, whoever leasing to maintain it?
So that will be part of the lease agreement, and there'll probably be some wiggle room in there on what maintain versus improve means and who's paying for what. So that will be part of the discussions on the agreement.
Thank you.
Mr. Sanders, I'm not sure if this is clarification or not, but when we were talking about putting restrictions and things like that, that was to make sure that someone doesn't come in, if we were to do something beyond the negotiations that are going on right now down the road, we're not the sitting board at that time. We want to try to protect those barns because they do have
Well, I
some
understand
historic,
that. I understand
rather
that.
than somebody coming down there and seeing the thing bulldozed over.
I understood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mark Price, 35 Etzel. Just a quick question. At the last meeting, the town meeting, the Conservation Committee pulled back their request to take over lots 7A and B. Has that been declared surplus?
That's what we were just discussing will be on the agenda for the January 13th meeting.
Gotcha. Okay.
With a joint meeting.
We'll discuss declaring it surplus with the CONSCOM at that meeting.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Rob Rounds, 25 Juniper Road. So pursuant to that Lot 107A and the CONSCOM meeting, there hasn't been this public hearing, and it was, negated by them pulling it back during the town meeting. So much like you're talking, which I think is a great thing, to bring in the potential lessee for a public hearing, get public input, I think similarly, I'd like you to consider, as you discuss with CONSCOM, a broader aspect with regard to the property. I'd love for there to be an opportunity for the public to weigh in and understand and be able to participate and give you some feedback, since I don't feel like that's been an opportunity except for these kind of 2-minute update sort of things. So just for your consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Just one more thing, the historical protection on the barn might be something we, as the town, might want to consider if we go through with the lease. I do know, like in Concord, the Barrett's Mill Organic Farm, which is being leased, that also the Historical Commission is a part of that property, and they do inspections to make sure, it's being farmed appropriately. But if it's a structure that we care about for the town and historically and want to maintain it, it might just help provide us with some protection with whomever is using it.
I think it's a good idea either way, but if we lease it, it's just less urgent because we still own it. But
Exactly.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
just part
thank
of the
you.
discussion. Yeah.
Town Common.
This is a request to utilize Town Common. It's 7 o'clock on Wednesday, November 20th for a silent vigil for the Transgender Day of Remembrance. So typically the board's requested for, when using these properties or using Town Common. And it's pretty straightforward.
Any discussion? Move that the Select Board approve the use of the Lower Littleton Common for a silent vigil for the Transgender Day of Remembrance on November 20th, 2024, starting at 7 p.m.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Taylor Street exclusion.
This was something requested by Mr. Wilson.
Yeah. I know we've talked about this in the past. I wanted to just bring it back to the surface. I think I spoke with DPW Director, with Jim, Chief of Police, and trying to find out reasons why it could be an issue to allow trucks on Taylor. There were none noted. We did reach out to PepsiCo, the
Patriot,
excuse me. Just again to get a feel of the safety issues and some of the concerns of going over the tracks all the time on King Street and into the traffic there by the high school. So obviously he's in agreement, although they've got a lot of their issues that were initially brewing up managed. They have a traffic manager now that kind of assists with some of their flow and issues like that. But just looking back at the history, I just don't see a reason why we do not. This road is not a country road. One whole side of it is industrial, which has trucks coming in and out of it. It's a wider road. It's a sidewalked road for 90% of it. And we're talking about a stretch of, like I said before, with
A mile?
no, it's not.
3/4, maybe?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that.
Yeah.
I'm talking from Whitcomb to Porter. I've witnessed many trucks take a right there at the VFW up Whitcomb, take a sharp corner onto Porter to come out around this. And it just doesn't make any sense to me that we're not allowing trucks. And I understand there could be issues with it. That's why I was saying we allow a 6-month and look at this. We allow this to open up for 6 months and then we relook it. And let the public say, well, now here's some of the issues, and we can ask DPW and the police if we had any issues. If we have issues, then we can relook it, whether we want to at that time say, let's restrict it at night because there's too much night traffic, or whether we want to put some other type of restrictions on it. To include maybe even the speed limit there, if that needs to change. But just from everyone that I've talked to, as far as, town officials and the user and what I've visually witnessed, I think we need to, I would like to push a vote to start the proceedings to open that up to the truck traffic.
And as I recall, when we discussed this last time, no one remembers why this exclusion is there. Is that correct? Like, it was there prior to...
There's different remembrances.
Okay. But it was there before Patriot Beverage was there?
Yeah,
Very fine was there.
Very Fine was there, right? Okay.
And I believe it might have been the concern at that time that Very Fine was going to have so much truck traffic that,
Yeah.
but, yeah, I'm still, my feeling is still the same on it, pushing all of these trucks out onto King Street in front of the school and the traffic that's being created there. It just gives the vehicles that want to get onto Route 2 and the railroad tracks, vehicles that just need to get to Route 2, that option, as opposed to have to all go up street. Now, that's why I think a 6-month look at this, and then we can review it to say, this is working, this isn't working. We still have control of what we want to do with it. And I know we did have a few people email on, they don't want it, or they don't like that, but I think the benefits outweigh, anything that I can see the negative side, as far as town-wide and safety, and I can go down a list of other things. So that's just my opinion. I'd like to hear everybody else. I know there's a lot to it, but we are talking about a fairly short stretch of road, and it's going to, I believe it assists in the safety of the community and the town.
Yeah, I think it's better traffic management. I think the police chief agrees. Steve Yonley, some professionals that we pay to figure this out. I mean, again, there's many different remembrances, but the one that keeps coming back is there was a resident on Taylor Street who had a relationship with the then police chief, and it became a restriction. So I think Mr. Wilson's proposal to do some time certain investigation, or just lift it for whatever it is, whether it's 6 months or a year. I don't know when the heaviest truck traffic would be.
But I even looked at, early in my tenure, I know we discussed we had in front of us Shaker Lane. There was a residents that wanted Shaker Lane to have a truck restriction, which I feel is a far more country road than, and we, after a lot of discussing with the public and also town officials, that didn't make sense. So that's why this one, to me,
It makes even less sense.
Makes less
than that
sense,
one.
excuse
And
me.
Steve had some very good arguments for why it didn't make sense to put a restriction on Shaker
right,
Lane.
with pushing all the traffic
Yeah,
through the
just
center.
moving it, like rearranging.
Or in the Shober
bridges
Road,
on
which is-
Titanic, as we say.
So that's where I'm at with it. Like I said, I want to say it's not quite a half mile that trucks are currently restricted from, because you have that, the ones that have the dirt.
Gardillo.
Yes, thank you. Pulling out of there. Those trucks don't have to abide by it anyway, because that's businesses that there. Keith Carroll owns a lot of those buildings. Excavation has trucks coming in and out of there. All these have been
SWS, Bay State Pipe.
all without incident. And we're not talking about, I think, this massive, all of a sudden, there's going to be a convoy coming up Taylor Street. It's not like that at all. It makes no sense to go up Taylor Street if you're going 495. I mean, it's a little easier for them to go the way that they're going. So I think it's really helps to alleviate some of the traffic.
Southbound or westbound traffic, or actually eastbound road too as well.
So can I suggest that we have a public hearing on this in maybe the December 16th meeting? I won't be here on the 2nd. And, because what I'd like clarification on, I agree with everything you said, is the process, if we are to remove this, if we can do a temporary one or not, right? Or if we should do a time-restricted one, right? It'd be good to hear and have documentation from DPW and the highway and the police chief supporting this, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked to them, you've talked to them, they all said something, but, usually we have a written something.
Yeah.
That goes in, and then we can have the public come in, and if anyone has any comments on it, they can comment at that time, and we can figure out what the process is, because I don't know what the process is either. Even if we were to vote on this, where does it go from there?
It goes to DOT. I think Jim, on a teleconference with you, do you recall what Mr. Yonley mentioned about the process after we would make a recommendation, or actually it's our decision, we approve it, and then Mass DOT could say.
For the temporary. Yeah, so what Mr. Yonley had explained, and we did ask him just before the meeting for whether he had heard back to DOT. DOT has a website that trucking companies or firms will go to, and they will find where the truck exclusion routes are, and they'll avoid them, obviously. So the way I understood it, Mr. Yonley had said that that will not change on the website. We can come here locally and take down the signs on a temporary basis and put them back up after the 6 months, but that will still be up as on their website, on DOT's website. That is being confirmed. What's that?
If you do it temporary?
Even if you're doing temporary, it's up there once it's there, because quite honestly, this is kind of an anomaly. usually communities are putting a lot up there. It's not something that anybody's experienced to come down or even temporarily come down.
It's like we're forcing trucks onto country
So,
roads.
so
Like,
even, so you're saying even if we vote to remove it and take the signs down, it's not gonna make an appreciable difference because all of the information is coming from the website and the trucking companies are gonna avoid it anyway.
We we need to confirm that.
It would
at the
take a while.
engineer.
It's going to change, though. It will change.
But if Patriot is the one that
Oh,
we're
that's
most,
fair,
most
right.
concerned
Yeah,
about,
that's
and we
true.
notify them.
That's true.
They can
Yeah.
notify their shipping companies. And
So that might make a difference.
Yeah, it's more for
actually.
the local
Yeah.
business thing.
And to that point, I mean, I've been in another community where the same situation, it was really more about the Jake break that was going through the neighborhood, and that business was on notice that this has got to stop, and they were vigilant about informing all of the drivers, whether they were outside vendors or their internal drivers, really, along these streets, there's no Jake breaks allowed whatsoever. And but to your point, that supports your point, that go to the area businesses and they
Yeah.
can make it perfectly known.
Good.
So I'm just saying that I think it'd be good to have, just more documentation on this. Like, it would be nice to have something from Patriot saying that if this was open, we'd expect 20 trucks a day, 5 trucks a day to take advantage of this or something. So we have,
Yeah, I have
When
email. I have emails of that.
when we do
have-
this, we can say, look, this is what we're expecting, this is what, if it turns out to be something different, we'll react, right? But this is what we're expecting the impact to be.
I mean, I don't know what the benefit of that is. I just, having trucks on it or not, it's really just allowing trucks and not allowing.
Right, but what I'm saying is like, we just should, I agree that the exclusion probably should be lifted, but it would be good to document why we agree that it should be lifted more, in a more formal process than what we currently have.
Okay. So have
Right.
DPW,
Have
written,
DPW,
police, fire.
police,
and then-
fire.
I mean, we're talking about Patriot, but that's because they're right there, but
Yeah, but that's important. I mean, they're, as Chuck pointed out, they're gonna be the ones who
benefit from it.
benefit from it and are probably realistically gonna be the majority of the new traffic on it.
especially if there's some go-to website that they all have the equivalent of a TomTom, where their dispatcher can track where they're going.
Right.
But they can also program in, these are streets you can, Star Road Drive. How many times do you wish?
That's
that
also
person-
part of it, what gets onto the GPS.
Right, exactly, for those vehicles. so.
It might be also good to reach out to Patriot and say, if we put a restriction on it, and no trucks overnight, right? Would that impact you versus not?
Yeah, see, I'd rather just have it open and then come back to restrict like that, to see if there is an issue. You know what I mean? Because why restrict when there's no need to restrict unless we find that that's why I was saying the 6-month relook.
And you did the,
But
what you're asking for is what's already taken place. I mean, you're already spoken to the people that we consider our professionals
Oh,
to
I'm not
make these decisions.
Yeah.
I think, we don't grant a one-day liquor license without having something written in our packet that says
Right.
the chief thinks this, has no objections.
Yeah, and I
think it makes
wasn't
sense
saying we're
to-
going to vote
I think it makes
tonight,
sense to
Karen.
make sure that we have that in writing as well. I don't see the point either of starting with a hourly restriction. I think we just
Lift
open it wide and
Yeah.
then see if we need to narrowly
Gauge it,
tailor
yeah.
it from there.
So could I request that in our next meeting, we open it up? Obviously, we could have more, I mean, that's why it was on here, so if people wanted to show up, they could come, or we've discussed this, it's been on the agenda, I think, 2 other times as well.
At least, yeah.
But I think if we say that we're going to make a vote on our next meeting, after public input regarding if anyone has any.
Yeah.
I think it would be
And
nice.
then I could have a letter from DPW, police,
Yeah.
Patriot. I have a lot of emails from Patriot, obviously.
Maybe they'll come and talk to us about it.
Dan's pretty good. He's the one that gave us the $10,000 donation for Patriots Day.
Yeah. Maybe
Good
they'll just come and
operator.
talk about it, so that if we have questions, they can answer them. I'd like to, we're doing this without a whole lot of public outcry for it. And I know not everybody here has heard public outcry about the Jake breaks, but I certainly have. I'd like us to.
On that stretch?
No,
Oh,
in
okay.
general. So,
Okay.
I mean, I think if we're gonna have a open discussion about traffic and issues, I don't, can we add the Jake Breaks issue to it? And see if anybody
they're
wants
two
to talk
separate
about
things.
it? They are two separate things, but they are affiliate, there's no reason why we can't do both.
I agree we should do, I agree with both of you, actually, that they're separate things and that we should do both. I don't know if they necessarily go together, because there's not you're not saying restricting Jake breaking on Olding that stretch.
No, I'm
But,
saying,
so-
but if we restrict Jake Breaks throughout the town, I think it would, if we're going to expand truck traffic, I think we should do it along with a restriction on air brakes.
I don't disagree that we should, I agree with you that we should restrict the Jake breaking, right? So we should look at what the process would be for that.
We've looked at that.
So let's move it forward. They don't have to go together, though. They both need to move forward. They don't have to
I'm
move at
going
the
to be
same
honest, I don't
cadence.
know enough about it.
Yeah.
Is there a reason to do it?
Yes, residents are pissed.
No, I mean, is there a reason to Jake break? Is there a
No,
reason? Is there
there-
a safety reason?
Residents on one road, right?
Not in our town, right?
Well, those
I
are the
mean,
questions I don't know. I don't
do
know
we
enough about
have-
trucks.
Yeah, we don't have that type of, that hilly area or sudden, right? If it's an emergency, there's always an exception for emergencies. We don't have that kind of incline, in towns such that, they should be gaining speed and then all of a sudden they've got a runaway truck coming downhill. I guess I'd like to understand why we wouldn't do it. It's something we've talked about before.
Maybe when we have Patriot in, we just have him start that discussion. What's your opinion? They're the biggest trucking probably industry in Littleton. We have.
I know some people, I know Powers Road is one of the roads that you had mentioned was an issue, but I know some folks that have lived on there for 20 years and they don't have any issue with it. The company, the trucking company that comes by there on a regular basis has been there since 1926.
Why do we want
Way
Jake
before the
Breaks?
way before the houses were built.
What are the
So,
benefits of
So
Jake
we,
Breaks?
so we only own.
Such that we want to protect
I mean,
them.
the folks that I've spoken to don't have a problem, they don't see it as a problem.
Well, you only
It
have
might
100
happen on occasion.
You have
Are they
100
gonna have a
yards.
problem if we exclude them?
If you're a super heavy truck and you're going downhill, you can use the Jake brake so you don't overheat your brakes.
Yeah, well, I know that this
Right.
isn't on our agenda, really, so
Right.
I just think let's put it on our agenda.
Let's move it forward. I agree we should.
For discussion.
And, yeah.
I also don't know what you do. I mean, I go to the track in the morning and you hear the trucks out Jake braking on 495 all
Yeah, we
the time.
can't do anything about that.
So,
I live at the bottom of the hill going onto Route 2 on Newtown Road.
Yeah,
I don't,
again,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't see it as an issue. And that is at the bottom of the hill where people come flying down that hill.
Okay, that's it. Jim,
We'll try to understand really, because Jake breaking is common throughout
The world.
Yeah, so I think if I can just help, and I don't know why the reason is, and whether it's a heavy load, whether it's a light load, or what the reason is, if I can just share with you to give you more information to understand exactly, I'll do the best I can to educate myself and you by explaining why that needs to happen. I mean, I can't imagine the truckers are just driving by just to be a nuisance, just doing that. There has to be some safety factor involved in it. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I'm more than happy to. I'll research and try and get any and all information to.
I don't think it's a safety factor. I think it's a convenience and wear and tear factor.
Okay. And I don't know.
Yeah, let's find out.
Yeah.
Well, let's keep
Reduce
that.
wear and tear on your brakes. You don't have to replace your brake discs nearly as often.
Yeah.
That's
if
why
you
I
just
said you
Jake
should.
brake all the time. Seriously.
I mean, honestly, in the 10 years or whatever that I've been on the board, I've never had anybody complain about Jake breaks. So I don't want to knee jerk and make a change, which could affect local businesses.
We don't even know that, so let's
If we don't
find out.
have,
Let's find out. Okay. Okay, we moving on? Northern Tier Rail?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is something that I received from Senator Eldridge's office and would like the Select Board's support of this, and that would be done online, in which I will submit on behalf of the town, and it will help, the way it's being presented, the Northern Tier Rail Project will help critical needs in central and western Mass. That Northern Tier, or Route 2, have been communities along that corridor are experiencing stagnant or declining population, suffering from economic decline, while the average age of residents grow older. So many businesses in western and central Mass are small to very small. The loss or closure of business can have significant impacts on a community. The return of the rail along the Northern Tier will help strengthen economies and boost opportunities for growth. The expansion can provide transportation mobility necessary to help relieve housing pressure that more urban areas are facing, and it will open up travel to central and western Mass and allow people in the region to travel more easily to points east, south, and west.
So this is basically a train line that goes from North Station out to Adams and potentially onto Albany. There's two different proposals. One stops in, I believe, around North Adams, and another continues it all the way to Albany.
So how does this affect Littleton residents?
Well, the train will be coming through Littleton. There is not a stop planned.
right?
Yeah.
So it's using the tracks that
It's
already
using the
exist,
tracks. The closest stop to Littleton would be Air, as currently proposed. They're planning on, the stop would be in Air.
That's the exchange where the tracks break off.
Yeah, so,
Still Pan Am line that got purchased.
so. It's, as with all rail projects, it's extremely expensive, and this is just asking us to support it to help move the ball.
Keep the ball.
So as this.
Give me a negative to this, Jim.
Why do we think this is going to succeed? There hasn't been rail traffic there for 40 years, so clearly there's not an economic benefit. Why do we think that it's going to win now? And how much is it going to cost the taxpayers of Massachusetts?
You don't want to know that number.
What's that?
The
I don't
number.
want to. I know it's a lot, but I'm just saying.
Well, I mean,
that's the negative. I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but
I mean, just, many of us have kids that are getting to the age where they're looking at either rent a place or buy a place potentially, and that they're having to move further and further west in order for affordability. So maybe, I'm just throwing that out as a potential to, some of the younger population may move out to some of, like you mentioned, some of the older population. And this is a vehicle for them to get, they might be working in Fitchburg or Leominster area, but it gives them that hour commute that some people that come from Littleton that go to Boston. So
If your kid's at UMass, you have an easier way for getting home.
fun is that.
So we're talking about getting into eminent domain issues and other things? or-
No, I think the state already owns the rights to most of it. It's just redeveloping the tracks. Whatever they have to do to turn it from freight to passenger.
But to Matthew's point, is there a financial benefit to Littleton for passing through?
Probably not. But I don't also think that's much more train traffic than we currently have. There's a possibility that, well, I don't think that this project itself would necessarily have financial benefit, but if they're improving the Fitchburg line, then there could be, is associated with it, secondary benefit.
If you do opt to do this, I'll submit this electronically, and that's how, and if you want me to authorize me to do that, or I can fill this out, and I will probably put the chairman's name on it. I'll do it however you would like to proceed.
Mark, this came from Boston? Who issued the request?
MassDOT.
So MassDOT specifically?
I believe so.
Yes.
In conjunction with Northern Trail.
And it's, the letters of support will be delivered to the governor, the lieutenant governor, and MassDOT officials.
Are they going to send us some money for MBTA housing? and
Probably
all
not.
No?
No.
So it's just,
It's just a feel-good, do something, so.
Have you seen the lowest expense that's estimated right now?
Yeah, I have seen it.
Is it in the hundreds of millions of dollars?
$878 plus million for, that's the lowest alternative. The higher investment is 1.5 billion.
That's a lot of money.
Talking about Shaker Lane?
Oh!
Too soon.
Jeez.
There is a motion,
Why do you gotta
if
do that?
anybody wants to.
Yeah, are we ready, I'm okay with voting for this in a very abstract way,
Yeah, I
yes.
thought Jamie asked us to, didn't he? Wasn't this
Yes.
his request?
All right.
Yes.
well, that's different. I didn't even, see, I wasn't even aware of that.
Yeah.
Move that the select board vote to endorse a letter of support for the Northern Tier Rail Project.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
How would you like me to submit this? I just gave you a couple options.
You can say the little
Napkin?
select board.
Fine. Done. Great.
Is this going to mean more horns honking as they come through Littleton?
I'm just saying,
Notice-
trains don't have
notice
Jake
use
brakes.
the Jake brake?
No.
They get squeaky sometimes.
So you can't blow the horn going through Acton, but you come to Littleton. I hear it, because right at Littlefield Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can stick right there too. Okay, makes you feel like I hear it too.
Minutes. Did anyone have any changes on the minutes?
3, 4 months, yeah, exactly. You get used to it, right?
No,
You don't?
no changes to the minutes.
All right, move that the select board vote to approve the meeting minutes from the select board meeting on November 4th, 2024.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't here. That's it. I abstain.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Oh, sorry.
Moved by Chuck, seconded by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Littleton.